Chapter 1165. This heavenly body tier middle-aged man was called Wei Ziqing. He was an elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, and was very famous in the sect. Even in the majestic heaven sect, there were only 24 heavenly body tier elites. Such an elite was actually sent flying with a single slap? Who could believe it? And the person who had done this was actually a measly mountain river tier disciple? This was too shocking. No matter how powerful and prodigious Yang Hao was, he was only at the sun-moon tier. How could he compare to a heavenly body tier elite? However, even Yang Hao being defeated in a single move was shocking enough, and now Wei Ziqing was also defeated in a single move. This naturally made people feel like their souls were about to leave their bodies. They were completely unable to believe it. Wei Ziqing gritted his teeth as he crawled to his feet, his expression filled with shock. He had thought that Hu Feiyun only possessed a spiritual mark of Empress Luanxing and could at most unleash a sliver of the power of the heavenly body tier. But now it was more than just a sliver. If a sliver of power could be so powerful, this Empress had definitely cultivated to the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. I have to admit that you are astonishingly powerful, but this is the majestic heaven sect, Wei Ziqing said, suppressing his anger. Empress Luanxing was completely disdainful of him. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back and said, "Keep that dog in check. If he bites people again, I will pull out all his teeth." Yang Hao couldn't help but feel humiliated. He had actually been called a dog. However, did he dare to jump up and boast now? That was Empress Luanxing. Who didn't know that those who could become the ruler of an empire were all talented and bold, and who wasn't a genius in martial art? Who wasn't standing at the peak stage of the heavenly body tier? Yang Hao was indeed astonishingly talented, but to surpass Empress Luanxing, who knew how many tens of thousands of years later? Perhaps it would never happen. Just think about it, how many eternal river tiers were there in such a large galaxy? Yang Hao could only swallow this humiliation. He glared at Ling Han hatefully. It was precisely because of this person that he had been humiliated in public. Although losing to a supreme elite of the heavenly body tier wouldn't cast too much of a shadow over his reputation, such a crushing defeat had still been witnessed by others. No matter what, this wasn't something to be proud of. Ling Han cracked a smile at him. This was his wife, and he had no qualms about standing up for her. Who told you to use your realm to suppress me? In a battle of the same level, who's afraid of who? A flash of anger also flashed across Wei Ziqing's face. However, in front of Empress Luanxing's domineering aura, his aura weakened, and the vicious words that were already at the tip of his tongue actually didn't come out. This was the difference between an expert and a king. Remember my words. Empress Luanxing glanced at Yang Hao again. Then she closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her terrifying aura had already receded like the tide. There was no longer any hint of domineering aura. Instead, she exuded a sense of confusion. It naturally became Hu Feiyun. Why you guys staring at me like that? Muddled Egg asked, a strange expression on her face. Everyone couldn't help but suck their teeth. Who would have thought that this unremarkable woman would have such a strong foundation? This unremarkable didn't mean that Hu Feiyun wasn't beautiful enough. Rather, her performance after entering the sect was mediocre, and there wasn't anything special about her. Among all the geniuses, he was naturally unremarkable. However, this unremarkable woman actually had the sole mark of a supreme elite hidden in her body. This was truly frightening. Thankfully, he hadn't quarreled with her previously. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. Although Empress Luanxing had left, Wei Ziqing didn't dare to do anything to Hu Feiyun. He glanced at Hu Feiyun again, then grabbed Yang Hao and fluttered down the peak. After being struck twice by Empress Luanxing, though it didn't take his life, Yang Hao was still severely injured. His injuries were definitely 10 or 20 times more serious than Ling Han's. This was the Empress attitude. If you hit one of my people, I'll return the favor tenfold. How domineering, Ling Han thought. No wonder she wants me to reach the Genesis tier before I can marry her. Otherwise, with her domineering style, she would definitely ride on top of me. Speaking of which, it's not that I can't accept this position. After such a commotion, everyone didn't have any thoughts of continuing, and all bid their farewells. Moreover, after seeing the battles of the king tiers, they were also filled with ambition for the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. Otherwise, even if they broke through to the sun-moon tier, so what? In a battle of equals, they were destined to lose. For prodigies like them, they were naturally aiming for the position of king tier that could sweep away all others at the same cultivation level. Brother Han, I'll contact you in a few days, He Tao said with a smile. He then waved his hand and swaggered off. Ling Han nodded and said, then we'll contact each other in the future. Senior Brother Han, do you know a person called Ling Han? Xiao Cici and the others all walked over, staring at Ling Han. This person also possessed a terrifying physique. If there were two such freaks in the world, they wouldn't believe it. Moreover, this person was called Han Lin, so wasn't that Ling Han? Ling Han knew that they already had a clue, so he didn't want to hide it anymore. He trusted that they wouldn't blabber about it, so he smiled and said, everyone, it's been more than 2 years. Are you all in good spirits? Xiao Cici and the others were all moved. Fuck, it really was this guy. I guessed it could be you, but I didn't dare to believe it. After all, you were only in the high extreme 2 years ago, Su Jing said with a sigh. It's only been such a long time, and you've already surpassed us in cultivation level. It's simply unbelievable. It's just luck, Ling Han said. Fuck, he's still pretending. I'm really not used to it. Let's go drink, we have to get him drunk. That's right, we have to get him drunk. They pulled Ling Han up, and the Rain Emperor and Ding Ping naturally followed them. Everyone went to drink. To Ling Han's surprise, Xia Wuk actually followed them. He sighed with emotion. In the past, they had been enemies. He hadn't thought that this guy's attitude would have such a huge change. There was a small town below the majestic heaven sect, and it had all kinds of restaurants. They asked for a private room, and then began to drink to their heart's content. Speaking of that mystery realm, many people here actually knew about it. You're talking about the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, right? Xiao Cici nodded and said, that's an ancient mystery realm, and it's an outer restriction that Venerable Trinity personally broke. Otherwise, no one would be able to enter. However, even Venerable Trinity couldn't enter. It said that he either died, or the mystery realm was destroyed by him. There are many rare treasures from the ancient era inside, as well as some high-level godly medicines. It's very attractive. Because only cultivators at the mountain river tier can enter, many people deliberately suppress their cultivation level so that they can enter the mystery realm a few more times and accumulate strength for their future cultivation. Su Jing and the others also chimed in. They all had powerful backgrounds, and they were far more knowledgeable about some secrets than Ling Han. However, I've heard that some large clans are even more ridiculous. They purposely have some sun-moon tier elites suppress their cultivation level to escort their juniors into the mystery realm. I've also heard that, Xia Wuk said. Xia Wuk said, moreover, although I've severed my cultivation level, I can still increase my power by ingesting some forbidden alchemical pills. Moreover, my comprehension of regulations has already reached the sun-moon tier long ago. Thus, once my power increases, I can naturally use high-level regulations. That's equivalent to the sun-moon tier. Chapter 1166. Ling Han was slightly surprised. They actually went to such lengths for a mystery realm. It was clear that this mystery realm was quite extraordinary, which was why the various great forces had made so many preparations. Then come, when the mystery realm opens, I'll follow you guys, he said with a smile. Which of these people wasn't the heir of a great clan, and they were very familiar with this Yellow Spring Mystery Realm. Ling Han didn't believe that the forces behind them wouldn't operate on this mystery realm. Perhaps, when they entered, they would be accompanied by such people. Hee hee. Xiao Cici and the others all laughed. As the saying went, there was no need to resort to insinuations. They knew those secrets clearly, and that was because they did the same. Brother Ling, if you can join our Thousand Frost Majestic Empire, you can state any condition, Xiao Cici said, her bright eyes twinkling, exuding a hint of charm. Such words, coupled with such a look, she was just short of saying that becoming a vassal of the current empire was completely negotiable. Hee hee, Brother Ling, I have a younger sister who is praised as a heavenly beauty, devastatingly beautiful, a perfect match for Brother Ling, Duan said hurriedly. I can guarantee that Brother Ling can be conferred the title of king. Join the tyrannical summer majestic empire, and we'll be blood brothers, Xia Yuanke said. Ling Han had already proven his talent, and was worth this price. Although Ling Han had offended Yang Hao was only at the Sun-Moon tier, and his background wasn't stronger than theirs. It could be said that as long as Yang Hao didn't step into the Eternal River tier, what need was there for them to be afraid of? Putting aside whether Yang Hao could step into the Eternal River tier, even if he could, how many years would it take? Even though Yang Hao had only used less than 1,000 years to reach the high extreme of the Sun-Moon tier, the Heavenly Body tier was already an extremely large threshold, let alone the Eternal River tier. There was only a single Eternal River tier elite in this galaxy, so it was easy to imagine how difficult it was. Thus, his advantage of being a few hundred years ahead of Ling Han in cultivation time would soon disappear. In the future, one step would easily take tens of thousands of years, and a few hundred years was really nothing. Meanwhile, Ling Han laughed along with them. He had his own force, so how could he join another nation? Moreover, even if he wanted to join a majestic empire, it would be the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Even the Empress is one of his people. Of course, these words were only spoken in his mind. Otherwise, it was entirely possible that the Eternity Sky Emperor, Jade Drop Emperor, and even a few of the 7 great generals would come to the Majestic Heaven sect to hunt him down. After the banquet ended, Ling Han, the Rain Emperor, Feng Piyun, Mu Rongqing, and Helian Tianyun gathered together, and once again began to drink. Now that Ling Han had arrived, they could naturally cultivate under the reincarnation tree. Meanwhile, Ling Han took a break from his busy schedule and brought Shui Yanyu far away. They sat down in a patch of flowers at the side. Wife, our son is so lucky. Ling Han placed his hands on the big vixen's perky breasts, his face full of praise. In contrast, Ling Jianxue was really pitiful. Helian Sun Xue was really lucky that her son did not starve to death. Though Shui Yanyu already had the most intimate relationship with him, she was still very shy. She couldn't help but blush, and she turned her head to bite his wrist. She scolded, "Little rascal." Her beautiful eyes moved, and there was boundless affection in them. Ling Han's heart swayed, and he said, "Thankfully, I'm a thick-skinned person. Otherwise, how could such a beautiful teacher become the mother of my child?" Shui Yanyu struggled lightly and said in annoyance, "When you said this, if you weren't so lecherously groping me, I might have been moved. But now I just want to bite you to death, you damn rascal." "Are you a dog? You really want to bite?" Ling Han said with a smile. His eyes turned, and he said, "Since you like biting so much, let me tell you a new way to play, so that you can bite to your heart's content." He leaned close to Shui Yenyu's ear and whispered softly, causing Shui Yenyu's eyes to instantly widen. She couldn't help but jump up and instantly straddled Ling Han's body. Damn rascal, shameless and vulgar." Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "So, wife, you like to take the initiative. Come, your husband will let you do whatever you want today." Shui Yanyu pinched him fiercely. Why did this guy always have to tease her until she was beyond embarrassed? "Gasp, I say, wife, where are you pinching?" Ling Han deliberately bared his teeth and sucked in a breath of cold air. Shui Yanyu was startled, and only then did she realize that she had actually pinched Ling Han's protruding part in her embarrassment. She was instantly too embarrassed to show her face, and how would she dare to touch Ling Han again? Wife, I like this side of you. You're obviously very flirtatious, yet your skin is extremely thin," Ling Han said with a smile. "Pervert." After battling Wu Zhi and Yang Hao, Ling Han naturally became a celebrity in the Majestic Heaven sect. Although Hu Feiyun's performance was more eye-catching, everyone knew that she could send Heavenly Body tier elites flying with a single slap because she had the mark of an elite on her body, and she was actually not very impressive herself. The next morning, there was an endless stream of people coming to visit Ling Han, wanting to befriend him and forge a relationship with him. Ling Han didn't put on airs, however. Instead, he chatted and joked with everyone, and formed a good relationship with them. because in his eyes, these people were all potential customers. Those who could enter the majestic heaven sect were basically the heirs of major forces, and the only thing they definitely didn't lack was money. If he wanted to earn money, he naturally had to walk the path of alchemy, and the people he sold were precisely these people. Ling Han chuckled, and his attitude was practically amiable, causing these people to feel extremely flattered. They hadn't thought that Ling Han would be so unpretentious. Meanwhile, Shui Yinyu shook her head at one side. She could be said to be very familiar with Ling Han, and naturally knew what he was planning. She thought to herself, these people have all been treated as fat sheep by Ling Han, yet they're still grateful to Ling Han. As expected, they've been sold by him, yet they're still counting the money for him. She then thought of herself. Hadn't she also been willingly tricked by this guy? This sweetheart? She was both shy and sweet. Ahem, is this senior brother Han? A young man in a green robe walked in. His eyes first swept over Shui Yinyu, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. After a few more glances, he looked at Ling Han. Ling Han was already displeased with him, so he calmly said, I am Han Lin. The young man in the green robe smiled proudly, and said, I am Gai Yongxi, from the Gao faction. What do you mean by good faction or bad faction? Ling Han hated it the most when people put on airs in front of him. That guy's arrogance annoyed him just looking at it. Gai Yongxi was unconcerned, and said, Senior brother Han, you still don't know, right? Our majestic heaven sect is divided into many factions. The founder took in a total of 9 personal disciples, so the factions of these 9 personal disciples are the strongest. Our Gao faction is one of them. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Venerable Trinity had no intention of contending for supremacy, but his 9 disciples were unwilling to stay put. Otherwise, they wouldn't have formed a faction. When Venerable Trinity passed into Tao, this galaxy would definitely experience chaos, and the territory would be redrawn. He calmly asked, so what? A sliver of anger appeared on Gai Yongxi's face. He hadn't heard him say that he was from the Gao faction, and that it was founded by Venerable Trinity's personal disciple. However, when he thought of his mission, he forcefully suppressed his anger, and said, I've come under the young master's orders to invite senior brother Han to join our Gao faction. Chapter 1168. Ling Han hesitated for a moment, but when he thought of the Mo family's help, he nodded and said, Indeed, I want to refine pills myself. The old man was surprised, but the smile on his face grew wider. He said, Young Master Han, I want to do business with you. Oh, what a coincidence. My surname is also Han, and my first name is Hua. So it's Shopkeeper Han, Ling Han greeted and said, May I know what kind of business Shopkeeper Han wants to do with me? Han Hua said, I can give you a few pill recipes for free, and I hope that you can hand them over to our business to sell after you refine them. Ling Han was stunned at first, but then a trace of admiration for Han Hua rose in his heart, as expected of a businessman. Although the other party was very generous and said that he would give him a few pill formulas, it was true that pill formulas were a type of resource. However, such resources could also be said to be worthless. That was because he only needed to make a copy, and there would be no loss for the Mahist establishment. However, if they could get pills from Ling Han and sell them, even if they didn't make a profit, they would still bring in a lot of customers. For a cultivator, pills were indispensable. And if you bought pills, you might even buy something else. As long as you bought one more thing, the store would make a profit. Besides, it was just a few pill recipes, and they could make friends with a super genius like Ling Han. There was no downside for the Mo family business. No wonder the Mo family could open their businesses all over the galaxy. They had a thorough understanding of how to do business, and had made friends with them everywhere. However, Han Hua would never have thought of how important it was to make friends with Ling Han, and how much help it would bring to the business. This was the Alchemy Emperor. Ling Han laughed and said, All right, then I'll thank you in advance, Shopkeeper Han. Han Hua, on the other hand, was overjoyed. He didn't think as much as Ling Han. He just wanted to make friends with Ling Han. After all, it didn't cost him anything, and he could make friends with a young king like Ling Han. As for Ling Han saying that he wanted to concoct pills, he didn't really take it to heart. After all, How could there be such a genius who could achieve such terrifying achievements in martial art and also advance by leaps and bounds in alchemy Dao? As for selling medicine for Ling Han, that was naturally to flatter Ling Han. May I know which pill formula young Master Han wants? Han Hui asked. Level 5. Ling Han replied. He already knew how to concoct level 4 god pills. His next target was naturally level 5. Han Hui was astonished. Rank 5. If you want to play around, level 1 divine pills are enough. What's the point of playing around with level 5 divine pills? Even if you're a seed of the majestic heaven sect and have obtained a lot of resources, you still can't afford to squander alchemical pills, especially high-grade alchemical pills. Ling Han revealed a smile as he withdrew a few bottles of medicinal pills and handed them over, saying, "These are the profound azure pills and jade heaven pills that I refined. I'll have to trouble Manager Han to sell them for me." Han Hui received the bottle in a daze. It took him a moment to realize that Ling Han wasn't joking. Profound azure pill, level 4 divine pill. Hiss, could it be that Ling Han really is an alchemist? And a high-grade one at that? He didn't dare to be careless and hurriedly opened the bottle to inspect it carefully. The Mo clan establishment sold everything, so Han Hui was naturally very familiar with alchemical pills. He could immediately confirm that these 2 pills were genuine, just as Ling Han had said. They really were refined by Ling Han. Han Hui believed it. In any case, he was deliberately trying to befriend Ling Han. He nodded and said, "Please wait for a moment, young Master Han. I'll go retrieve the pill formula. Hee, because it's a bit precious, I don't carry it around with me. I'm afraid I'll lose it. Manager Han, please feel free." After a while, Han Hui returned and handed over a small booklet. Ling Han took one, and the words, 7 Ultimate Flying Flame Pill, were written on the cover. He flipped through it roughly, and found that it was all about the ingredients and concoction process of the 7 Ultimate Flying Flame Pill. In particular, the concoction process took up more than 90% of the space. The refining process of a high-grade divine pill was extremely complicated, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it would take up an entire booklet to describe it. 7 Ultimate Flying Flame Pill can temporarily raise the battle prowess of those who cultivate fire-type cultivation techniques by 2 stars. 2 stars. Ling Han couldn't help but be astonished when he read the introduction of the pill formula. One had to realize that most people were mediocre, and it was difficult for them to even raise their battle prowess by 1 star, to say nothing of 2 stars. Although this wouldn't be of much help to his cultivation, he didn't need a level 5 divine pill for the time being. However, if he managed to refine this pill, it would definitely be treated as a treasure by fire-type cultivators. Moreover, elites at the Sun Moon tier definitely wouldn't lack money, and they would definitely be able to afford a high price. Young Master Han, what do you think of this pill formula? Han Hui asked. All right. Ling Han nodded. However, young Master Han, this 7 Ultimate Flying Flame Pill is extremely difficult to refine. I've heard that even many level 6 alchemists can't refine it, Han Hui reminded. If you really can't refine it, please don't spend too much time on it. After all, young Master Han is a genius of martial art. I know what I'm doing, Ling Han replied. Han Hui had good intentions, so he naturally wouldn't be angered. Moreover, Han Hui's words were indeed reasonable. In the end, martial art should still be the most important. However, Han Hui didn't know that Ling Han had a reincarnation tree. This was practically nature-defying. The two of them discussed the details of their collaboration. Of course, all of this was based on the premise that Ling Han could refine the 7 Ultimate Flying Flame Pill. Han Hui didn't have too much confidence in him, so he gave a large share of the profits. In terms of profits, Ling Han would get 10%, and the Mo clan establishment would get 10%. He had originally planned to give all of the profits to Ling Han. However, it was Ling Han who took the initiative to compromise that he finally accepted the current distribution plan. Han Hui really didn't believe that Ling Han could succeed. Thus, he naturally didn't mind giving away all of the profits. After all, this was practically nothing. Right now, Ling Han needed a large amount of true origin stones to purchase godly metal to improve the quality of his divine demon sword. Thus, he bought the ingredients needed to refine the 7 ultimate flying flame pill in the shop before returning to the majestic heaven sect. He immediately entered the Black Tower and comprehended the pill recipe under the reincarnation tree. The steps of alchemy were actually very easy to grasp. Even an ordinary person could do this. No matter how complicated it was only a matter of time. Familiarity made perfect. However, not just anyone could make the divine patterns in the ingredients intertwine. One needed a powerful divine sense and fine control. The changes involved in this process numbered in the millions. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to understand it even if they spent their entire life trying. Even level 5 and level 6 godly alchemists would need over 100 years to master it. Thus, Han Hu truly didn't believe that Ling Han could refine the alchemical pill in a short period of time. However, Ling Han was brimming with confidence. He had the reincarnation tree. As the tree's leaves swayed gently, he entered into a meditative state. He simulated the refinement of the alchemical pill in his spiritual world over and over again. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Time passed by quietly. Chapter 1169. 1 day outside is equivalent to 1 year under the reincarnation tree. 7 days later, Ling Han attempted to refine the 7 ultimate flying flame pill for the first time. Naturally, he failed. There was still a considerable gap between imagination and reality. Ling Han did not continue to cultivate. Instead, he chose to meditate for 2 days. In other words, he used 2 years to relive the process of failure, and then began the second refinement. Another failure. But this time, Ling Han only summed up his failure for half a day before starting his third attempt. It worked. However, he only obtained 2 pills. In theory, a cauldron of 7 ultimate flying flame pills could only produce 4 pills at most. Ling Han had successfully refined 2 pills on his first try. His success rate was 50%, which was not easy at all. However, Ling Han wasn't very satisfied with these 2 pills. Because the quality wasn't very high. Ling Han had an urge to toss these 2 pills away. The Alchemy Emperor had personally made a move, so how could he allow these pills to be seen by others? However, he had only just raised his hand when he put it down again. These 2 pills could be sold for several tens of thousands of true essence stones. It would be a pity to lose them like this. Sigh, why am I so poor? Ling Han stroked his chin, and then looked at the divine demon sword. He thought about how much money he would have to spend to truly upgrade this divine sword to the level of divine metal. But it is worth it to obtain a divine weapon that truly belongs to me. For example, the Black Tower was awesome, but he could only use it as a spatial god tool, and its powerful offensive capabilities could not be displayed at all. Therefore, it wasn't about how high the grade of a treasure was, but how much power it could display. Again, Ling Han bought a total of 5 sets of materials. It wasn't that he didn't want to buy more, but he was short of money, so he could only do this. On the 4th try, he managed to refine 3 7 ultimate flying flame pills. On the 5th try, he managed to refine a perfect 4 pills. No, he improved rapidly. However, after every refinement, he would summarize and reflect on his mistakes under the reincarnation tree, erasing any flaws. Because of this, the 5th cauldron's medicinal dawn improved greatly in terms of quality and reached perfection. I wonder if shopkeeper Han will be stunned when he arrives. Ling Han smiled. It had only been a month, but he had already refined 9 flying flame pills, and 4 of them had even reached a perfect level. Successfully refining a cauldron of 7 ultimate flying flame pills would take 5 days, and this was only for level 5 divine pills. It was said that from level 9 onwards, refining a cauldron of pills would easily take a year and a half. Just the slightest mistake would cause all of his previous efforts to go to waste. My cultivation hasn't increased by much, but my soul has become much stronger. Ling Han mumbled. He had been concocting pills all this time, so naturally he had no time to cultivate. His origin power was practically stagnant, but concocting pills was extremely taxing on one's primordial spirit. This was a form of tempering. I'll sell the alchemical pills first. I have to earn enough money to upgrade the divine demon sword to level 4. This was Ling Han's temporary goal. Advancing to the 5th level could wait. After all, he hadn't broken through to the Sun-Moon tier yet. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and heard from Fan Ru that the people from the Gao faction had already come a few times. However, because Ling Han had been in seclusion this entire time, they naturally could only leave in displeasure. Apparently, Gao Huang was already furious and said that he wanted Ling Han to personally go to the Gao faction to seek an audience. Moreover, the deadline was yesterday, which was already the last day. Idiot? Ling Han shook his head. He couldn't be bothered with them at all and left. Ling Han arrived at the small town at the foot of the mountain and directly went to the Mo clan establishment. Young Master Han. Han Hu just so happened to be on the ground floor. When he saw Ling Han, he was first startled and then wore a strange expression. Why had this prodigy come again? Could it be that after studying pill recipes, he realized that he couldn't successfully refine them, so he gave up? Now, he wanted to change to an easier pill recipe to refine? In his eyes, this was very reasonable. Ling Han retrieved a pill bottle and said, "Shopkeeper Han, please help me sell these alchemical pills." Han Hu didn't think much of it. After receiving the pill bottle, he said, "Young Master Han, is this the mysterious azure pill again?" "That's right. The alchemical pills that young Master Han asked me to sell last time have all been sold, and we made a considerable profit." Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "This isn't the mysterious azure pill, but the 7 ultimate flying flame pill." Pooh! Han Hua immediately spluttered and then coughed incessantly. His face was completely red. "Are you joking? It's only been a month, and you've already refined the 7 ultimate flying flame pill? Impossible! Impossible! Although this was a level 5 divine pill, it was extremely difficult to refine. Even many level 6 alchemists would deliberately avoid it. However, Ling Han had refined it in a mere month. Wasn't this a joke? "Young Master Han, you really know how to joke," he said with a smile. Ling Han also smiled and said, "I do indeed like to joke." Only then did Han Hu breathe a sigh of relief. He curiously asked, "Then what alchemical pill did young Master Han refine this time?" He was curious. Didn't Ling Han take the 7 ultimate flying flame pill to study? Why has he gone to refine another alchemical pill? He pulled out the stopper and poured out a few crimson alchemical pills. Shockingly, these alchemical pills seemed to be burning. Not only were they exuding heat, but they could also feel the surging flames. If an ordinary person held these alchemical pills with their hand, a hole would probably be instantly burned into their palm. This was because the temperature was astonishingly high. Perhaps even flower blossom tier cultivators wouldn't dare to touch them easily. However, Han Hua was at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, so this was naturally a piece of cake. However, the expression on his face was even more astonished than if a hole had been burned into his palm. How could he not be astonished? This is fucking 7 ultimate flying flame pill. Young Master Han, are you sure you're not joking with me? Han Hua's face twitched. He was about to faint. Ling Han laughed heartily. He patted Han Hua's shoulder and said, "Shopkeeper Han, you have to improve your sense of humor." Although the two of them were tens of thousands of years apart in age, Ling Han's cultivation level was superior to Han Hua's. Thus, according to the rules of the martial art world, he was actually the senior. Patting Han Hua's shoulder was definitely not a form of humiliation. Han Hua looked closely. He was an expert when it came to appraising goods, and he could immediately determine that these 9 alchemical pills had all been recently refined. The 7 ultimate flying flame pill was even more distinctive. The fresher it was, the greener the flame would be. It would slowly turn blue, then red, and finally purplish-black. If it had truly turned purplish-black, it meant that too much time had passed, and most of its medicinal effects had already dissipated. It was basically a useless pill. Han Hua was on the verge of tears. These are really 7 ultimate flying flame pills that have just been refined? Could it be that Ling Han has truly succeeded? What kind of freak is he? Young Master Han, you've really refined them? No, what you're feeling right now is just an illusion, Ling Han said with a smile. This time, Han Hua finally had a sense of humor. He said, "Young Master Han, You almost scared this old man to death. Refining the 7 Ultimate Flying Flame pill in just a month is simply unprecedented and unparalleled. Although he was purposely flattering Ling Han, he did not exaggerate too much. Without the reincarnation tree, even Ling Han would have to spend more than 10 years to fully understand this pill recipe. After advancing to the divine realm, a cultivator's lifespan would increase by leaps and bounds. However, comprehending a certain secret art, formation, or pill recipe would still require hundreds of years. It was extremely shocking. Chapter 1170. Ling Han laughed, and then said with a serious expression, "Shopkeeper Han, I need you to help me with something, and that is to collect as much level 3 godly metal as possible. I'll pay you with my profits." "No problem." Han Hua cleverly didn't ask why Ling Han needed so much godly metal. Instead, he patted his chest and agreed. "Sorry to trouble you, Shopkeeper Han. I'm willing to be at your service, young Master Han." Ling Han nodded and bought a few more batches of ingredients. He still had to continue refining the 7 Ultimate Flying Flame pill. This was his source of income. Han Hua accompanied Ling Han in selecting ingredients as he wiped away his sweat. He still hadn't recovered from his shock. Ling Han smiled and said, "Shopkeeper Han, are you regretting our previous agreement? You get 10%, while I get 90%. You've suffered a great loss." "No way." Han Hua hurriedly shook his head. Although he was also very pained, as an outstanding merchant, he knew that Ling Han could have completely not handed over the 7 Ultimate Flying Flame pill to them to sell. Would there be any fear that no one would buy such an alchemical pill? With a casual shout, they would be able to sell as many as they had. Moreover, the other party could have taken all the profits, yet he had specially given 10% to the Mo clan establishment. This was a huge favor. He naturally knew that Ling Han had no understanding of his own alchemy level. How many people could do this when he clearly knew that he could refine the 7 Ultimate Flying Flame pill and still give up 10% of the profits? "I can't thank young Master Han enough for your good intentions." He also didn't understand why Ling Han would take such good care of the Mo clan establishment. Ling Han nodded and said, "On the way to the Majestic Heaven sect, I was ambushed and lost my way in the galaxy. Fortunately, I came across the Mo clan's merchant ship, and they didn't abandon me, allowing me to hitch a ride." Only now did Han Hua understand. He involuntarily clasped his hands and said, "Young Master Han is truly a man of character." To the Mo clan, this was only an insignificant gesture, yet they had obtained the friendship of a young King Tier in exchange. This transaction was really too worth it. Moreover, this was also because Ling Han knew how to repay kindness. Otherwise, so what if he turned his back on him? Ling Han smiled and said, "Shopkeeper Han, please proceed with the matter that I've requested of you as soon as possible. There is no need to care what kind of level 3 godly metal it is. It doesn't matter even if it's old or impure. It's fine as long as its quality reaches level 3. This old man will remember it. Young Master Han, please come back in a month's time. This old man will definitely give young Master Han a surprise," Han Hua said confidently. He decided to report Ling Han's matter to the higher-ups of the Mo clan. In the first place, a young King Tier was worth roping in, let alone a man like Ling Han who valued comradeship. He would report to the higher-ups of the Mo clan and obtain an unlimited amount of godly metal for Ling Han. A mere level 3 godly metal could be exchanged for a favorable impression from a young King Tier. This was really too worth it. Moreover, Ling Han's achievements in alchemy were really too frightening. He had refined level 5 divine pills in a single month, and not just once. Gasp, I actually forgot. Young Master Han is only at the Mountain River tier. How is he able to refine a level 5 divine pill? Can one be considered to be in the Sun Moon tier just because he has formed the 5th Mountain River? A dual cultivator of pill and martial arts, a master of both pill and martial arts. Our Mo family definitely cannot miss out on such a genius. Perhaps in the future, this youth will rule the world. We must be bound to him at all costs. Han Hua murmured. Although his surname was not Mo, he was still a member of the Mo family. Because he had married into the Mo family, His sons and grandsons all had the surname Mo. Ling Han walked casually. Now that he had obtained the godly medal, he was in a very good mood. Next, he should prepare for the matter of the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, and after this trip to the Mystery Realm, he would more or less be able to break through to the Sun-Moon tier. Once he broke through to the Sun-Moon tier, he would set out to search for the whereabouts of the 5 sects and the Rock Palace. He couldn't keep delaying. Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, it had been 10,000 years since they last met. Who knew how she was doing now? When she saw him again, she would definitely be astonished. Not only had he revived the dead, but he had also advanced so quickly that it was practically unbelievable. Only 10,000 years had passed, and he had already reached the Sun-Moon tier. This should have surpassed the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the Sword Emperor. After being bullied by this evil woman for decades, it was time for him to fight back. How could he not give her a good spanking? His son should be all grown up now. What about his parents? Hunyo should be becoming more and more like a young lady. What about Helian Xuanxue, Zhu Xian Air, Lu Yutong, and Li Xichan? He sighed. Although not many years had passed in this life, the love debts he had incurred far surpassed the 200 years of his last life. On the way back to the Majestic Heaven sect, Ling Han decided to bury all the love debts to the bottom of his heart. In comparison, nothing was more important than the desire to become stronger. Only with strength could he do what he wanted to do, even if it was just for the freedom to breathe air. Han Lin. A fierce roar traveled over from afar. He walked over, and saw that there were currently 4 people standing at the entrance of his palace, all of them wearing expressions of fury. He recognized 2 of them. One was Fu Liangye, and the other was Gai Yongxi. Why had they come again? Han Lin, this is your last chance. Young Master Gao said that if you kneel all the way to Thousand Bird Peak today, he can forgive your previous disrespect, Gai Yongxi said proudly. Ling Han looked at him with a strange expression, and said, Are you forgetful? You want to ask for a beating again? Han Lin, a middle-aged man said. His voice was deep like thunder, exuding a frightening might the moment he opened his mouth. This was not because he was naturally domineering, but because he had used the power of suppression from his cultivation level. Sun-Moon tier no wonder Gai Yongxi was so bold today. It turned out that he had a powerful helper. Meanwhile, Fu Liangye smiled coldly. He had also joined the Gao faction, and when he learned that they were going to deal with Ling Han, he immediately took the initiative to ask to come along. He wanted to see how Ling Han would lower his head. It was fine if he didn't lower his head, but he would definitely be humiliated. Indeed, Sun-Moon tier cultivators could not casually attack Mountain River tier cultivators. After all, not everyone was called Yang Hao, but if an elite of Sun-Moon tier secretly played some tricks and suppressed Ling Han's cultivation level, and then had other Mountain River tier cultivators suppress Ling Han, who could say anything? Ling Han walked over, opened the door, entered, and then closed the door. Pooh! Gai Yongxi and the others almost went mad with anger. What did you mean? Were they air? Were they being ignored just like that? Han Lin. Gai Yongxi pressed a hand on the door, stopping Ling Han from closing it. There was a taboo that definitely could not be violated in the Majestic Heaven sect, and that was that without permission, one definitely could not enter another person's room. You could fight normally and it was fine. Cultivators improved their strength through battle. However, if they were disturbed during seclusion, it was very possible that they would be crippled. This was definitely not allowed by the sect. Thus, normally, as long as your cultivation level was similar, you could fight as you wanted, and no one would stop you. However, when you returned to your residence, that was an absolute shelter, and no one could act recklessly. Even Yang Hao did not dare to break this kind of taboo. This was the bottom line. Thus, when Ling Han wanted to enter the room, Gai Yongxi naturally became anxious. Ling Han broke into a grin, and stretched out a hand to grab Gai Yongxi. Obviously, you have forgotten my warning from last time, and have come running in again. Chapter 1172. Thousand Source True Fluid? Notionless Saint thought for a moment, and said, after the death of an eternal river tier immortal, after a long period of time, the murderous aura within the blood has been worn away, and if the essence has not been completely lost, It may become thousand source true fluid. For immortals below the eternal river tier, this is a precious treasure. Every drop of thousand source true fluid contains the comprehension of the great Tao of heaven and earth of an eternal river tier immortal, and can help immortals increase their cultivation level. It's quite good. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. No wonder Gao Huang was so desperate for thousand source true fluid. He had already cultivated to the peak stage of the sun-moon tier, but how difficult was it to cross the heavenly body tier? Even his father, who was also in the heavenly body tier, couldn't do it. After Gao Huang consumed 3 drops of thousand source true fluid, he might have a chance to break through to the heavenly body tier. Though Ling Han hadn't met this Gao Huang, from his behavior, he was definitely a greedy person. Moreover, for something as important as breaking through to the heavenly body tier, the more thousand source true fluid, the better. And Gao Huang actually said he only wanted 3 drops. What did this mean? The difficulty of obtaining thousand source true fluid was definitely astonishingly high, so even with Gao Huang's greed, he only wanted 3 drops. Sun-moon tier cultivators can't enter the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, so he searched everywhere for elites of the Mountain River tier to find thousand source true fluid for him. Ling Han shook his head and said, "What an extremely selfish person. What right does he have to make others give him treasures?" Ling Han couldn't be bothered to get angry and began to concoct alchemical pills again. Before entering the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, he definitely had to improve the Divine Demon Sword to level 4, which would require large amounts of true origin stones. This time, Ling Han didn't spend all his time on alchemical pills. He would take some time to cultivate and improve his origin power and body arts. Personal strength was the most important thing. However, after only half a month, Ling Han was forced to stop concocting alchemical pills. Yuan Qinghe was about to break through. However, he couldn't let Yuan Qinghe appear without reason and cross the heavenly tribulation in the sect. Thus, he left the sect alone, and then took out the cloud-piercing shuttle to a faraway place. He released Yuan Qinghe and let him cross the heavenly tribulation. Because his foundation was really solid, coupled with Yuan Qinghe's extraordinary talent, he naturally passed the heavenly tribulation easily, allowing another deity to be by Ling Han's side. There was also no problem for Qin Yi to pass the heavenly tribulation, but it was a bit difficult for Guang Yuan and Zhu Wujiu. It couldn't be helped. The natural talent of these 2 people was indeed a bit too ordinary. In the small world, they could just barely be considered geniuses, but normally speaking, the flower blossom tier should be the limit. But now they had been pushed to the shattering void tier by Ling Han, and could even possibly break through to the immortal level. This caused them to be somewhat unable to control their own power. He could only stop at the Mountain River tier, right? Ling Han said inwardly. Qin Yi and Yuan Cheng he still had room to advance, but for Guang Yuan and Zhu Wujiu, so be it. He returned to the majestic heaven sect, and continued to cultivate in seclusion. When the 1-month deadline was up, he brought the newly refined alchemical pills to the Mo clan establishment. So much godly metal. Ling Han was surprised. The spatial spirit tool that Han Hua handed over was filled with godly metal. Though he knew alchemical pills were very profitable, could they really earn this much? I reported young Master Han's matter to the clan, and the clan gave me an order, which is to complete this task for young Master Han with all my might, Han Hua said with a smile. I have been collecting godly metal this month. Additionally, the clan is also mobilizing and will transport godly metal from other places. As long as young Master Han doesn't say it's enough, the godly metal will not stop. Ling Han smiled and said, "Aren't you afraid that I can't concoct enough alchemical pills to repay you?" As long as young Master Han is happy, what's a mere bit of godly metal? Han Hua said proudly. It could be said that the Mo clan was the largest business in this galaxy. Though Han Hua's words were boastful, he did indeed have the confidence to back them up. Ling Han was astonished. The Mo clan actually valued him so much, investing so much in him before he had even advanced to the Sun-Moon tier. It should be known that there was no lack of prodigies in this world. It was very easy for prodigies to wither halfway through their cultivation. It could only be said that the Mo clan was truly wealthy and could afford a 1 in a million loss. Moreover, once Ling Han became a great elite of the heavenly body tier in the future, the returns that the Mo clan could obtain would also be astonishing. If Ling Han could advance another step and reach the eternal river tier, then the Mo clan would truly soar into the sky. Many thanks. Ling Han didn't act pretentious. He was confident that he could become a heavenly body tier, an eternal river tier, or even a Genesis tier. The investment that the Mo clan had made today would definitely reap great rewards in the future. After returning to the majestic heaven sect, Ling Han began to raise the quality of the divine demon sword. In less than half a day, all the godly metal had turned into scrap, and the divine demon sword was still a long way from level 4. The higher the level, the more godly metal would be needed to advance, and not just an ordinary amount. Ling Han could only wait. Thankfully, there were still more than 3 months before the opening of the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm. The Majestic Heaven sect also began to distribute the slots to enter the Mystery Realm. Aside from the disciples of the Mountain River tier that could enter, there were also a portion of slots that would be given to people outside the sect. As for what price they would have to pay to exchange for it, only the person in charge of this matter would know. Ling Han couldn't care less about these things. He just worked hard on cultivating and refining alchemical pills. The essence of a demon master had already been mostly used up. Thankfully, Ling Han himself was the alchemy emperor, nourishing his martial arts with alchemical pills. Though the effects weren't as astonishing as the essence of a demon master, he could refine it himself, and there was no limit to the quantity. Good news came one after another. As the Mo clan establishment endlessly sent him godly metal, the divine demon sword finally advanced to level 4, and now he needed level 4 godly metal to continue increasing the quality of the divine demon sword. Don't just ask for a single level increase, the price that he needed to pay would definitely soar tenfold. Thus, Ling Han couldn't let the Mo clan establishment work for free. Instead, he planned to first pay off this debt, and then consider buying large amounts of level 4 godly metal. He pinned his hopes of making a fortune on this trip to the Mystery Realm. If he could get a few secret techniques and sell them, his income would definitely be very high. Additionally, he had also reached the middle stage of the pinnacle level, and his strength had advanced to 8 stars. This was very shocking. Hu told him to have the reincarnation tree, and he had enough time to comprehend his cultivation level. The Rain Emperor, Ding Ping, Shui Yinyu, Hu Feiyun, and the others also had obvious improvements. The most impressive was still the Rain Emperor, who shockingly reached the peak stage of the medium extreme. Even with the help of Ling Han's alchemical pills and the reincarnation tree to comprehend Tao, this was still very shocking. It was as if the Rain Emperor was born for cultivation, and the higher his cultivation level, the more terrifying his explosive power was. Meanwhile, Feng Piyun, Ding Ping, and the others had only just advanced into the medium extreme, and the gap between them and the Rain Emperor was growing wider and wider. Shui Yinyu had also reached the peak stage of the high extreme. As for Hu Feiyun, because she was a clone of Empress Luanxing, as long as she cultivated seriously, her speed of improvement was also astonishing. She had already advanced into the peak stage of the consummate level, and could break through to the pinnacle level. And the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm had finally opened. Chapter 1173. The Yellow Spring Mystery Realm wasn't in the Heavenly Wind Mountains, but in the Death Valley that was 100,000 miles away. This was still the territory of the Majestic Heaven sect, but it was a forbidden area tens of thousands of years ago. One could tell from the name that this was the Death Valley, and anyone who entered would die without a doubt. Only when Venerable Trinity came here and suppressed the ominous aura did the ancient ruins buried here finally reappear in the world, allowing people to enter, explore, and obtain treasures. However, this ancient site wasn't some training ground. It was designed for cultivators to take risks. This should be the abode of an elite, and it was protected by a terrifying restriction. Venerable Trinity had indeed dispelled a part of the restriction, but he couldn't completely dispel it. Thus, this place could only be entered once every 100 years, because the power of the restriction would be at its lowest. Moreover, Venerable Trinity was responsible for opening the door, allowing people to enter. Even so, it could only accommodate the power of the Mountain River tier. If it was too strong, it would trigger the restriction, and the result would be terrible. Even though Venerable Trinity had dispelled the ominous aura here, it was still filled with an eerie coldness. If it wasn't for the fact that the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm opened once every 100 years, no one would be willing to come here. There were no flowers, no trees, no wild beasts, and no birds. This was a barren land. The whole valley exuded a black aura, and it was unclear where it came from. It enveloped the valley, making people want to avoid it. No one wanted to come into contact with it. But now, this place was overcrowded. Some people came here to try their luck even if they didn't get a place from the Majestic Heaven sect. Ling Han's eyes swept over, and he saw a familiar person he hadn't seen many times. Sha Yuan, his eyes involuntarily turned cold, revealing a sliver of killing intent. This person coveted the treasures he had, and asked him for them several times. After he refused, he even sent people to kill him. Ling Han had never forgotten this grudge. Previously, Ling Han didn't have a chance to take revenge because Sha Yuan was at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, and he stayed in the academy and the great General Sha's residence all day long. How could he kill him? But now? Sha Yuan's strength hadn't changed, but Ling Han had advanced into the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. And this wasn't Point Star City, but a mystery realm. Sha Yuan, you should return what you owe me. He's Sha Yuan? The Rain Emperor asked. He had heard Ling Han mention the matter of him becoming enemies with Zhao Lun, Sha Yuan, and the others. Ling Han nodded and said, yes, he is. Let's join forces and get rid of him, said Murong Qing murderously. The strongest among the three of them had only just advanced into the high extreme, and there was still a considerable gap between them and Sha Yuan. Even if the three of them joined forces, it was still impossible for them to win. Ling Han shook his head and said, after we enter the secret of the mystery realm. Will Sha Yuan, Ling Han said. Feng Peyun also nodded. They were all heroic people, filled with confidence in themselves, and did not want to live under Ling Han's protection. Ling Han knew that he could not dissuade them, so he nodded and said, be careful. He had already given enough alchemical pills to his brothers, his disciple, and Helian Tianyun. Cultivation could not always be focused on cultivation, and actual combat was equally important. Han Lin, He Tao, Wu Zhe, and 4 other young men and women with impressive appearances walked over. The people around them moved aside to make way for them. They were the 6 king tiers of the mountain river tier of the Majestic Heaven sect. They were invincible in the mountain river tier, and after entering the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, they were truly invincible. Because Sun Moon tier cultivators couldn't enter, who could be a match for the 6 king tiers? Of course, there were 7 king tiers now. Ling Han nodded, clasped his hands, and said, greetings, everyone. They had met once before to discuss opening the treasure trove. Because the treasure trove was in the deepest part of the mystery realm, and there were many opportunities along the way, they couldn't leave everything behind and go there directly. Thus, they agreed to act separately before reaching the treasure trove. Wu Zhe had already swept away the embarrassment of losing a battle and regained his confidence. He didn't avoid Ling Han's gaze even though he was facing him again. It's about time. Soon, an elite descended from the sky like a celestial emperor, leaving behind endless divine light as if the heavens were moved by him. Venerable Trinity. It's Venerable Trinity. Many people called out, their faces filled with sincerity. In this galaxy, eternal river tier elites were the most powerful beings, and they were naturally like gods in everyone's eyes. However, no one could see the true appearance of this elite. Boundless divine light wrapped around his body, and it was impossible to tell whether he was tall, short, male, or female. If they didn't know that there was only one eternal river tier elite here, they wouldn't be able to guess his identity at all. Shio. Many more figures flew over and stood behind Venerable Trinity. There were a total of 24 of them. These were 24 heavenly body tier elites of the Majestic Heaven sect. The mission today was very important, and all the elites of the Majestic Heaven sect had come out in full force. Ling Han's eyes swept over them. These 24 people didn't hide their faces, so he could see them clearly. However, Aside from Wei Ziqing, Ling Han didn't recognize any of them. He only remembered their appearances in his heart. Venerable Trinity didn't waste any words, and directly spread out his arms. He began to channel a powerful mystical power to sweep away the black aura. Although the mountain wind that blew out was still sinister, it was much better. This was a necessary step. Otherwise, if they directly entered, those below the heavenly body tier would all be killed. Venerable Trinity entered the valley, and the 24 heavenly body tier elites assisted him from the side, clearing away the scattered black aura. The others all followed behind him. Those who obtained a spot were all given a jade pendant. It was inconspicuous before, but now it was exuding a faint light, forming a halo that protected them. There were also some people who wanted to fish in troubled waters, so they naturally didn't have jade pendants. They were very conspicuous here. However, the strange thing was that the great elites of the Majestic Heaven sect didn't have any intention of chasing them away. Instead, they allowed them to mingle in the crowd, which was very confusing. If the Majestic Heaven sect didn't plan to control this mystery realm, then why did they need to give out spots? After opening the mystery realm, they could just directly let people in. However, those who came here for the first time soon found out why. Someone screamed in pain and collapsed to the ground. His whole body spasmed, and it was obvious that he was in great pain. After a short while, he stopped moving, and his life force completely disappeared. He was actually dead. Ling Han was astonished because he hadn't discovered anything strange at all. That person had mysteriously died. He had already cultivated to the immortal level, so there definitely wasn't some strange disease that would suddenly cause him to die. If there was anything special, it would be that the person who had died was a stowaway, and there was no jade pendant flashing. Could it be because of this reason? Chapter 1174. More screams rang out as victims appeared one after another. Without exception, none of them were protected by the light of the jade pendant. No wonder the Majestic Heaven sect didn't care about stowaways at all. As it turned out, even if they had gotten rid of the ominous aura here, cultivators below the heavenly body tier still needed special protection to pass through this valley. Was the Majestic Heaven sect cruel enough to let these people die? Ling Han shook his head. This was not a question of whether the Majestic Heaven sect was cruel or not. Rather, it was a question of whether the Majestic Heaven sect cared. They were the #1 force in the galaxy, so did they need to care about what others thought? What a joke! Ling Han thought as he walked. He hadn't even walked halfway when all the stowaways were dead. He was only in the mountain river tier, so how long could he last? Ling Han's sympathy was not overflowing. Entering an ancient site to explore was to be responsible for one's own life and death. Without such awareness and courage, what was one doing in an ancient site? He was curious about what had killed these people. He knew about the black gas, but what was it? He communicated with the Black Tower and asked the notionless saint for guidance. That eternal river tier cultivator should have cultivated some evil cultivation technique that has affected the environment here. Notionless saint speculated. Since that third prime junior outside couldn't sweep away all ominous signs, I can conclude that his cultivation base is far inferior to the people who died here. Ling Han agreed. One was dead, and the other was alive. However, the living could not completely overthrow the arrangements of the dead. There was indeed a difference in strength. It was said that there was a huge gap between immortals, and this was proof of that. They were both at the eternal river tier, yet Venerable Trinity could only sweep away some of the inauspicious signs. Every 100 years he would take advantage of the fact that the power of the restriction had reached its lowest point to open a gap for others to enter. Of course, Venerable Trinity couldn't be underestimated because of this. No matter what, he was the strongest expert in the entire galaxy. No matter what, the strong should be respected. Everyone walked very slowly because the progress of clearing away the ominous black chi was very slow. Even if Venerable Trinity personally took action, he would not be able to do so easily. After half a day, they finally arrived at the bottom of the valley. Venerable Trinity unleashed his great divine ability and tore space apart. Instantly, a pitch-black entrance appeared. Through this entrance, One could see a completely different world with verdant mountains and clear waters. What was even more shocking was that a river descended from the heavens, its end nowhere to be seen, just like the Milky Way. The river was dark and gloomy, exuding an endless aura of death. One could vaguely sense countless souls churning in it. Even separated by such an entrance, Ling Han could still feel the eeriness and horror of the Milky Way. Was this the Yellow Springs? "We can go in now," Venerable Trinity said. There was a hint of exhaustion in his voice. He was a mighty eternal river tier elite, yet he was actually wearing an expression of exhaustion. It could be seen just how much of a burden it was for Venerable Trinity to clear out the ominous aura here and create a gap in the restrictions. Everyone hurriedly entered one after another. Shwa, 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 their figures flashed, their speed extremely fast. Bam! One person followed, but was suddenly blown to pieces. This person was at the Sun-Moon tier, and he had deliberately suppressed his cultivation level in an attempt to sneak in. He had already reached the final step, yet no one had managed to blast him out. Instead, he had been killed by the restrictions here. Those above the mountain river tier couldn't enter. This wasn't just nonsense. Ling Han also entered with Shui Yinyu and the others. When they passed through this entrance, they all felt an obvious chill. It was as if the dead were whispering in their ears, and the surging waves of the Yellow Springs surged into the sky, releasing a deafening roar. Everyone stepped onto their own paths and they followed the Yellow Springs. This was something that everyone knew. If one walked along the Yellow Springs, they would never lose their way. "Fourth brother, let's part ways here." The Rain Emperor and the others parted ways with Ling Han, and they all set off on their own. In the end, only Ling Han, Shui Yinyu, and Hu Feiyun remained. "Let's go." Ling Han pulled Shui Yinyu along and strode away. "Wait for me." Hu Feiyun hurriedly followed after them, as if she were afraid that Ling Han and Shui Yinyu would leave her behind. The three of them walked side by side, and after walking for a while, Ling Han sniffed and said, "Smells so good." Shui Yinyu hit him, thinking that he was flirting with her again. Really, there was still the 9th king present, and that was the Empress's clone. Ling Han laughed and said, "You've been wronged. I didn't say that your body smells good, but there's a flowery fragrance." "Really?" Shui Yinyu's eyes widened. She didn't really believe Ling Han. This guy always found ways to flirt with her. "I also smelled it." Hu Feiyun hurriedly nodded. "Let's go." Ling Han turned around. In any case, the Yellow Springs was too obvious a target, and they could see it anywhere, so there was no need to worry about losing their way. They followed the fragrance, and after a while a small hill appeared in front of them, and on the top of the hill, there was an incredibly bright flower blooming. It was this flower that was exuding a faint fragrance. It wasn't very strong, but it could travel extremely far. The three of them weren't the first to smell the fragrance. There were two others who had arrived before them, but they clearly weren't together and were separated on two sides. Was this a godly medicine? Ling Han didn't recognize this flower, and Shui Yinyu and Hu Feiyun also wore blank expressions. They were probably the same. And what stopped them was that the surroundings of the small hill were filled with white bones, some humanoid, and some beast-shaped. Obviously, they weren't the only ones who had designs on this flower, but those who went to pluck it had all died. Ling Han didn't know the value of this flower, but with so many humans and beasts pouncing on it, he had reason to believe that this flower should be extremely valuable. Otherwise, why would everyone want to pluck it? Wait, wasn't this using a fixed pattern of thought? When the people who came later pounced on it, they naturally thought that the flower was a treasure and went up in a rush. What a beautiful flower! Shui Yenyu's eyes were misty, and she revealed a dazed expression. She was about to stretch out her legs and walk towards the small hill. Ling Han hurriedly pulled her back, a shocked expression on his face. This flower's fragrance actually had the effect of confusing one's mind. However, this evidently varied from person to person. Neither he nor Hu Feiyun were affected, or rather, they hadn't been affected yet. Meanwhile, the other two had already walked forward. Their eyes were blank, but there was a fanatical expression on their faces. It was as if what they had arrived at was not a flower, but a supreme throne, and they could rule over the world and command all saints by sitting on it. Whoosh, when the two of them neared the small hill, a black cloud suddenly flew out from the small hill and swept towards the two of them. It merely scraped against them for a moment, and the black cloud was blown away, shrinking back into the small hill. And these two people had actually turned into two skeletons. The skeletons fell to the ground and became one of the many sacrifices around the small hill. So this was how people died. Chapter 1176. These insects not only had sharp teeth, but their saliva could also secrete a strange substance that caused intense pain to their prey and even had a numbing effect. Ling Han discovered that his body had become somewhat stiff. Furthermore, this substance was spreading through his entire body along with his blood, and even his nerves were about to become numb. In this way, the power of his flames instantly weakened, and the dizzied black snakes regained their momentum, pouncing toward Ling Han again. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, and the supreme mysteries of heaven and earth circulated in his body. Instantly, the numbness disappeared, and he laughed, the power of his flames rising again. Who's stronger? Ling Han drew out the divine demon sword. Hong, the divine demon sword, also released endless flames, which was an excellent method to deal with insects. He was still channeling the 7-kill subduing soul technique, and a mental attack swept over. A large number of insects fell to the ground, and Ling Han stored them into the Black Tower. Perhaps they could become his secret weapon. With the circulation of the indestructible heaven scroll, Ling Han's wounds were also rapidly recovering. Although there were the occasional bugs that could break through his defenses and bite him, a mere few bugs were not enough to pose a threat at all. After all, they were really too small, and if tens of thousands or hundreds of millions of them attacked together, their power would be terrifying, and they could instantly eat up a person's flesh. "Master, I admire you so much," the Azura Demon Emperor flattered from the side. Indeed, he had taken control of a Sun-Moon tear puppet, but faced with these insects, he suffered a crushing defeat, and one of his arms was almost bitten off. However, Ling Han had the upper hand. In comparison, the gap between them was obvious. This didn't mean that Ling Han was stronger than Sun-Moon tier elites. Rather, it was because his current techniques were more targeted. His physique was powerful, and added with the recovery ability of the indestructible heaven scroll, he was the best candidate to deal with these insects. The sky was full of black clouds, but they had a clear area of activity and definitely would not fly out. Even Ling Han's figure could not be seen, and only the flickering of flames could be vaguely seen, indicating that he was still fighting. However, as they fought, the black clouds began to grow fainter and fainter because large amounts of bugs were killed and collected by Ling Han. One could see that a thick layer of bug corpses had formed under his feet. Finally, no more insects dared to attack Ling Han. The remaining insects flew back to the hill. Suddenly, the surroundings became quiet. Ling Han looked at the strange flower and held his breath and all the pores on his body. Then he used the indestructible heaven scroll to guard his divine sense. In his mind, his true self sat on guard, emitting a golden light. Only then did he walk towards the strange flower. When he got closer, he began to dig the soil instead of plucking the flower. He dug out the strange flower along with its roots, and then stored it into the Black Tower. He planted this flower first, and then left the Black Tower. "Let's go." He did not shovel the small mound away, leaving the black insects a chance to live. The three of them and the puppet continued to move forward. They did not return to the Yellow Springs. In any case, they just needed to follow the direction. There was no need to follow the river. After tens of thousands of years, there was at least one thing that was certain, and that was that they absolutely could not go into the river, not even touching the river water. Why was it called the Yellow Springs? It was not as simple as just going up and being sinister. It was basically a river of death that could take away one's life. If one came into contact with the river water, they would die, and their soul would be swallowed by the river water. There had once been people who wanted to collect the water of the Yellow Springs. Unfortunately, they had just gotten close, and before they could collect it, only an empty shell remained of their body. This was a forbidden area, and could only be used as a signpost. As Ling Han walked, he communicated with the Black Tower, and asked Notionless Saint about the strange flower and the black insects. Could this be the misty soul-capturing flower? Notionless Saint thought for a moment, and then said, although it is completely useless to humans, its effects are extremely terrifying. In fact, it can even confuse the mind of eternal river tier elites. Ling Han nodded and said, right now, this misty soul-capturing flower can't even affect me, which means that it is far from mature? That should be the case, Notionless Saint said. If this misty soul-capturing flower was used well, it would be extremely effective. Because Ling Han had the Black Tower, he could summon the misty soul-capturing flower and then hide in the Black Tower. However, this misty soul-capturing flower was far from mature. Even he could not affect it, so it would definitely be ineffective against Sun-Moon tier elites. At the very least, it would take a long time to see its effects. Then what about this insect? He asked. The Saint Beetle, Notionless Saint was slightly astonished. Ling Han was puzzled and he asked, this kind of thing that eats human flesh can actually be called a saint? The orb of light that Notionless Saint had transformed into flickered, and it seemed like he was slightly moved. After a while, he said, that's because this insect was born from the corpse of a saint after his death. Ling Han was astonished. A saint could actually create such a strange insect after his death? Not every saint will be like this after their death. Depending on the great Tao they cultivate, some will turn into Saint Fire insects, while others will turn into Saint Ice insects. Moreover, not all insects are so small. I've seen a saint insect before, and it was tens of thousands of meters long. Its strength was also unfathomable, and even I didn't dare to oppose it, Notionless Saint said. Tens of thousands of meters long. Could it still be called an insect? Ling Han said, in that case, it's possible that this is the abode of a saint. Impossible. Notionless Saint immediately denied this and said, if this was a trap set up by a saint, then how could a mere eternal river tier cultivator break through the restrictions? Unless they purposely let you in. It's probably a brat here who obtained some saint beetles from somewhere and slowly nurtured so many. Moreover, if it was the first batch of saint beetles that were born, they could easily bite even eternal river tier elites to death. How could they have been collected by you? Ling Han nodded. He had also obtained some saint beetles, so he could also slowly increase their numbers. However, these things really had to be treated with caution. If they were allowed to go out of control, the damage they could cause would be devastating. Saints were invincible when they were alive, and they could also cause chaos in death. However, everything had two sides. As long as they were used well, saint beetles could also play a positive role. After traveling for a day, they stopped and set up camp, preparing to rest. There was a change of day and night in this mystery realm, but it was only a change of light and darkness. It couldn't affect the sun, moon, or stars. It was clear that eternal river tier elites didn't have the ability to capture a sun and place it in the mystery realm. They had a total of half a year. After half a year, the restrictions would gradually become stronger, and even Venerable Trinity wouldn't be able to break through them. Thus, they had to return to the place where they had entered after half a year. At that time, Venerable Trinity would tear open the mystery realm again and take them away. They had to make sure of this timing. Otherwise, if they missed it, the restrictions would slowly become stronger and kill the outsiders. They had never heard of anyone surviving to the next 100 years. Chapter 1177. Why did Big Sister Shui disappear in the middle of the night last night? Hu Feiyun asked curiously the next morning. Shui Yanyu was eating, and she instantly coughed when she heard this. She rolled her eyes at Ling Han. It was all this guy's fault. He called her out in the middle of the night to do some shameful things. Ling Han couldn't help but smile and said, you're just a child, so don't ask so many questions. Just eat your food. Hu Feiyun pouted. Why did everyone treat her like a child? Big Sister was like this, and now Ling Han was also like this. She was furious. After eating breakfast, they continued on their journey. There were not only creepy things like the misty soul-capturing flower and saint beetles here, but also various godly medicines. Otherwise, the misty soul-capturing flower wouldn't have attracted so many people. because everyone thought that it was a godly medicine. They also discovered a few godly medicines along the way. Unfortunately, they were a step too late and the godly medicine had already been plucked. Some people were crude and not only plucked the medicine, but also destroyed its roots. However, some people were more careful and were careful when plucking the medicine, leaving the roots intact. They could wait for another 100 years, or even the 100 years after that to pluck it. Ling Han didn't hold back. When he found the roots, he would directly dig them into the Black Tower. Only in the Black Tower could the effects of the godly medicine be maximized. The smile on his face became brighter and brighter. This was really a profitable trip. If he could have such harvests every day, then to say nothing of other things, merely this trip of plucking medicine would be a huge profit. However, his luck was sometimes good, and he could encounter 7 or 8 godly medicines in a day. Sometimes, it wasn't so good, and he would encounter countless godly medicines in a day. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. The intense sound of weapons clashing came from ahead, and one could even see flashes of divine light soaring into the sky. It was clear that the battle was intense. "Let's go." Hu Feiyun was immediately interested. Shui Yenyu's curiosity wasn't so strong, and she said, "Let's not be nosy." However, Hu Feiyun had already turned around and was running in that direction. She was extremely excited. They hadn't experienced any battles in these 7 days, so the 9th king's heart that yearned for excitement was completely out of control. Ling Han and Shui Yenyu exchanged a look, and could only follow after them. However, they weren't afraid. Sun Moon tier elites couldn't enter this place, so Ling Han was practically invincible. At the very least, they didn't have to worry about their safety. In front of them was a field of rubble. After passing through the rubble, both sides of the battle appeared in front of them. On one side, there were 7 people, and on the other side, there were 25 people. They formed an encirclement, trapping the 7 people inside. "Hand over the 9-layer divine lotus, and we can spare your lives," one of the people surrounding them said. "Bullshit." Among the 7 trapped, there was a beautiful woman with long red hair. She was dressed in an extremely bold and unrestrained manner. She wore a shoulder-bearing armor that revealed her 2 jade-like arms, and even part of her towering peaks could be seen. The armor on his lower body only covered his thighs, revealing 2 shockingly long thighs that were perfectly round and straight. However, her skin was not white. Instead, it was the color of wheat. Like a female leopard, she exuded astonishing vitality. She humphed and said, "You didn't kill us because you're afraid that we'll destroy the 9-layer divine lotus. If we hand over the 9-layer divine lotus, we'll die." Ha! The people surrounding them all laughed loudly. "Don't worry, Leader Meng. Everyone else will die, but you definitely won't." One of the people surrounding them laughed lewdly and said, "I've long heard of Leader Meng's beauty. If we don't have a taste of Leader Meng, wouldn't it be too much of a waste?" Haha. The people surrounding them laughed without restraint. The mystery realm was so big, and the chances of others discovering their evil deeds were infinitely low. Even if they were discovered, they could just kill them all together. How despicable! Hu Feiyun couldn't help but draw her sword and rush out. "Evil thieves, sword." She charged out alone, and the people surrounding them faltered for a moment before bursting into laughter. It was just a little girl. Wasn't this like sending a lamb into a tiger's den? "She's also a beauty." "Perfect, there's only one Leader Meng. How long do we have to wait in line? Even if the 3 of us go together, we'll have to wait for 7 rounds. With another beauty, we'll only have to wait for 3 rounds. Boss, there's another beauty over there." These people's gazes landed on Shui Yenyu, and they immediately couldn't help but drool. This beauty was obviously even more beautiful, and she had a seductive charm that could make one's soul go crazy. If they could have sex with this beauty even once, they would be willing to shorten their lifespan by 100 years. These people all howled like wolves, incredibly excited. You're all thinking too much." Ling Han's feet flew, and he had already arrived in front of these people. He said calmly, "Scram, and I can spare your lives." He wasn't a bloodthirsty person, and he didn't know what conflict there was between the 2 of them, so he didn't want to kill them all. Brat, you're very arrogant, aren't you? A brawny man in his 30s walked out. His clothes were unbuttoned, and a round belly was revealed. His face was full of muscles, and he held a large saber in his hand. His killing intent was very heavy. Handsome, thank you for your righteous rescue. However, these people are not to be trifled with. Hurry up and leave while you still have the chance. The red-haired beauty called out loudly. You've already gotten involved in this mess, and you still want to leave? One of the people surrounding them sneered. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, They're just some trash, what's there to be smug about? You're courting death. The big-bellied saber-wielding man's eyes were cold. Taking advantage of the moment when Ling Han was speaking, he suddenly leaped and slashed at Ling Han. He used his full power right from the start. Divine patterns intertwined, and this saber was also covered in divine light, exuding a frightening coldness. Poof! A cold light flashed, and the divine demon sword had already appeared. It slashed out on its own, and easily sliced through the opponent's saber. Then, it followed the momentum and sliced the big-bellied saber-wielding man in two. Blood splattered, and internal organs danced wildly. Everyone was inexplicably horrified, frightened by this sword. It was too terrifying. How could the might of this strike be so domineering? Wang, the divine demon sword hovered beside Ling Han. Its blade was not stained with blood, yet it exuded a frightening murderous aura. As its level increased, the might exuded by this divine sword also became more and more frightening. One had to realize that devouring gold metal could mature into divine metal. Even if it hadn't reached this level yet, it was who knew how many times stronger than ordinary godly metal. Sir, how should I address you? One of the people surrounding them asked in a deep voice. He didn't dare to underestimate Ling Han anymore. Their group was all in the business of robbery, and they had spent money to buy a few spots to enter this place. They had also robbed a few people, and thus had a total of 25 spots. Even though they weren't prodigies, after countless years of cultivation, they had all reached the consummate level of the mountain river tier. In their eyes, wouldn't 25 people be invincible if they joined forces? However, Ling Han had killed one of their companions with a single strike, so they didn't dare to be careless anymore. They finally realized that there were still prodigies in this world, and their battle prowess was far beyond their imagination. However, if their chance of survival was cut off, they would become extremely vicious and evil people. They definitely wouldn't obediently accept death. They put down the red-haired beauty and the others, and charged toward Ling Han. If Ling Han didn't die, then all of them would die. Ling Han smirked coldly and spread his fingers. Shio shio shio. 24 streaks of divine light shot out. Poo pew pew pew. The heads of the 24 bandits all exploded, and they died a clean and crisp death. The red-haired beauty and the others were all dumbstruck, and they looked at Ling Han in disbelief. What kind of freakish battle prowess was this? Didn't this place forbid Sun-Moon tier cultivators? However, wasn't this battle prowess at the Sun-Moon tier? A whole 24 cultivators at the consummate level of the Mountain River tier had been insta-killed just like that. Who could believe this? Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "No need to thank me." After saying this, he pulled Shui Yinyu away. "Wait for me." Hu Feiyun faltered for a moment, and then hurriedly followed after them. Hey, hey, hey. The red-haired beauty also came to her senses and ran over. Hey, handsome, why are you walking so fast? Are you worried that I'll eat you? She even winked at Ling Han as she said this. Ling Han was astonished. This woman was too careless, wasn't she? She had almost been killed just then, and now she was actually in the mood to make eyes at him. Are you all right? Shui Yinyu asked. Sigh. The red-haired beauty sighed, and said, We've really suffered heavy losses this time. She immediately began to talk, not caring whether Ling Han and the others were interested or not. As it turned out, they were a mercenary group that worked for money. However, they hadn't been hired this time. Instead, they had paid a large sum of money to come here on their own. Their goal was a treasure trove here. They had been hired to protect a person in the past 100 years, and during that time, they had discovered that treasure trove. In the end, they had suffered heavy casualties, and even their employer had died. However, they still couldn't forget about that treasure trove, and thus came here again. However, they discovered a 9-layer celestial lotus along the way. After paying the price of 4 deaths, they managed to pluck the lotus from the claws of the demonic beast that was guarding the divine herb. Who would have thought that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, and they ended up being targeted by a group of thieves? If it weren't for the fact that they were afraid that they would destroy the 9-layer divine lotus, the red-haired beauty and the others definitely wouldn't have been able to last until Ling Han and the others arrived. "Handsome, you're so powerful, so why don't we cooperate?" The red-haired beauty extended an invitation. "That's right, my surname is Meng Wei." Ling Han grumbled in his mind. "Are we working together to obtain the treasure? It's like you're going to eat me up. How about half for each side?" Meng Wei was very enthusiastic. "Although you're powerful, we're the ones who provided the location of the treasure. Hence, half for each side shouldn't be too much, right?" Ling Han sighed and said, "I haven't agreed yet." "It's fine. I'll think about it and agree." Meng Wei Hao laughed heartily, not minding that her breasts were shaking, as if they were about to jump out of her armor. Ling Han's expression turned serious as he said, "What kind of treasure is it? Tell me." Meng Wei revealed an as-expected smile, and said, "That should be the residence of an alchemist. Hence, there are many alchemical pills here, and perhaps even some pill recipes. Let's each make a copy, and we'll definitely make a huge profit if we sell them." Ling Han's eyes also lit up, attracted by the word alchemist. He nodded and said, "All right, then let's cooperate. We'll split the elixir equally, and we'll each make a copy of the elixir recipe." Meng Wei stretched out her hand. Ling Han patted her hand, and the two of them reached an agreement. They set off and headed towards the residence of that medicinal pill. However, when it was nighttime, they still decided to stop and rest for a while to recover their energy. After all, they had experienced a huge battle during the day. It was going to be 55 soon. He hoped that he could continue to make it to the top 55 red envelope list. By the 5th of May, the red envelope reign would be able to give back to the readers and promote his work. A peace is also love, definitely good is better. Chapter 1180. P.S. Here's today's update, and at the same time, pull some votes for Chidian's 55th Fan Festival. Everyone has a ticket, and there are coins for voting. Hee hee. A smug expression spread across Meng Wei's face, and she said, "I've cultivated a special cultivation technique that allows me to release a sliver of my divine sense within a certain range. Ordinary restrictions can't block it." Ling Han couldn't help but glance at her. This cultivation technique was quite good. It allowed him to explore unknown areas without risking his own life. "What's the situation now?" he asked. Meng Wei nodded. She closed her eyes, and it was as if she had become a stone statue. Ling Han's sharp senses detected that something had crawled out from Meng Wei's body. It was invisible and formless, so he naturally couldn't see or touch it. Only divine sense could sense its existence, but it had to be very close. If it was any further, he couldn't sense it. After a long while, Meng Wei suddenly opened her eyes and said, "As expected, it's still the same group of demonic beasts. I slashed the eye of one of them, and I still remember it clearly." "What cultivation level are they at?" Ling Han asked. "Most of them are at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, and only a few are at the high extreme," Meng Wei said. Then she patted Ling Han's shoulder and said, "In the past, we could only run, but now that you're here, go and take care of all of them." "Are you ordering me around like a lackey?" Ling Han shook his head. If they were only at the consummate level of the mountain river tier, he naturally wouldn't be afraid. If there were sun-moon tier great beasts, then he could only run. However, it was still worth the risk for the treasure left behind by an alchemist. With a kick, he sent the courtyard door flying and directly barged in. This was a garden, but the garden was already abandoned. There were 3 demonic beasts lying on the ground resting. They looked like tigers, but the difference was that there was a single horn on their foreheads, and they were all silver in color. Hearing the commotion, the 3 demonic beasts all crawled up. Someone's here again. Oh, we can have a feast? Cultivators are very nourishing. If I eat a human, perhaps I can advance. How is that possible? Unless you can eat a human at the Sun-Moon tier. However, it's really not bad to have a sumptuous meal. It's been a long time since I've eaten human flesh. How nostalgic. The 3 demonic beasts spoke one after another. Once they reached the god realm, they would naturally be able to speak. It would not be a problem for them to transform into human form. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "It's been a long time since I've eaten beast meat. I don't mind trying it." What an arrogant human. Kill him. The 3 demonic beasts roared and charged towards Ling Han. These were 3 demonic beasts at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. Their battle prowess was quite astonishing, because demonic beasts had an innate advantage over cultivators. Thus, it was extremely normal for their battle prowess to surpass 1 star. Xiao, 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 3 demonic beasts pounced over, their shadows seeming to blot out the sky and cover the earth. Ling Han shook his head and casually raised a finger. Pava. 3 flashes of sword light swept over, and the 3 demonic beasts were sliced in half. They were completely dead. Because they had seen Ling Han insta-kill 24 thieves at the consummate level, Meng Wei and the others were already mentally prepared. However, seeing 3 powerful demonic beasts sliced in half with a single finger was still a huge shock to them. So it turned out that mountain river tier cultivators could be this powerful. As expected of a disciple of the majestic heaven sect, Ling Han walked over and casually stored the corpses of the 3 demonic beasts into the Black Tower. The bodies of high-level demonic beasts were treasures, and their spiritual flesh was extremely nourishing. It was extremely useful for body cultivators. More demonic beasts scuttled out from the manor. When they discovered that there were only a few pools of blood on the ground, and that their 3 companions were nowhere to be seen, they all flew into a rage. A horned tiger stepped forward and said, "Human, where are our companions?" "They wanted to eat me, but I killed them," Ling Han said with a smile. This instantly infuriated the demonic beasts, and they all wanted to pounce over and bite Ling Han to death. However, the horned tiger released a roar and suppressed the other demonic beasts. Then it said, "Human, we have no enmity with you, so why did you come to our territory and kill our own kind?" Ling Han smiled and said, "Your question makes me feel slightly embarrassed. However, since you are demonic beasts, why did you occupy the territory of humans? So, even if someone has to ask questions, I should be the one asking them. Why did you come here?" The horned tiger couldn't help but feel stifled. He had only asked this question to give Ling Han some psychological pressure. If some humans didn't have a strong enough mental fortitude, they would shrink back after being questioned by these few sentences. Moreover, he indeed didn't want to become enemies with these humans. 3 of his companions had actually been killed so quickly, so it was clear that their strength was a bit too strong. It would be best if they didn't battle. At their level, there wasn't much difference between demonic beasts and humans. They were all cultivators of the Tao of heaven and earth. "Big brother, why are you still wasting words with him? We have so many tigers, so why should we be afraid of a few humans?" A horned tiger said in disdain. They had also eaten many humans during the opening of ancient sites in the past. In their minds, human cultivators were synonymous with weakness, so there was naturally no need for them to be afraid. The leader of the horned tigers was clearly hesitant. On one hand, he didn't dare to underestimate Ling Han and the others, and on the other hand, he was used to thinking that humans couldn't be very strong. He didn't know what to choose at this moment. Die. However, Meng Wei drew her saber and charged forward. "Leader!" Her subordinates hurriedly charged after her. Otherwise, if she was surrounded by the tigers, she would be quickly torn to pieces even if she was at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. "Ha, it's you." A horned tiger chuckled coldly. There was a wound at the corner of his eye, and it had been inflicted by Meng Wei 100 years ago. He had been secretly hating her for so many years, and he hadn't thought that he would have a chance to take revenge. He was the first to pounce. Upon seeing this, the tigers also roared and charged forward. Upon seeing this, the leader of the horned tigers could only let out a roar and charge forward. Kill, kill. Hu Feiyun hid behind Shui Yenyu. She liked bustling scenes, yet she was afraid of death. Thus, if there was danger, it was naturally up to them to deal with it. She would just watch from the sidelines. Ling Han shook his head. He had no intention of forcing her to fight either. For example, the Rain Emperor and the others needed to improve themselves through battle. However, Hu Feiyun's situation was special. She only needed to increase her cultivation level, and Empress Luanxing's will would slowly awaken and guide her as she climbed to the peak of martial art. Thus, she didn't need to fight in battle. After all, she had already gone through this process. Meanwhile, Shui Yenyu was very interested, and she charged forward with her sword. She didn't want to be a pretty face by Ling Han's side. She wanted to show her light and warmth. Of course, she wasn't stupid. She found the weakest tiger in the pack, which was at the same cultivation level as her. Instantly, an intense battle broke out. The Azura Demon Emperor was responsible for protecting them. Although his battle prowess was only at the low extreme level of the Sun-Moon tier, in this mystery realm, his battle prowess was like that of a saint. Thus, Ling Han was very assured. However, he didn't dare to use this kind of power carelessly. It was possible that he would be targeted by the restrictions here. However, both Ling Han and the Azura Demon Emperor didn't move, so everyone immediately fell into a dangerous situation. It was almost 55, and they hoped that they could continue to make a name for themselves on the 55 red packet rankings. By the 5th of May, the reign of red packets would be able to reward readers and promote their works. Being a piece of cake was also love. It was definitely more refreshing to read on the phone. Chapter 1181. P.S. Here is today's update, and at the same time, gather votes for Chidian's 55th Fan Festival. Everyone has a ticket, and the votes will be rewarded with coins, begging for everyone's support and appreciation. The leader of the Horned Tigers was a little confused. He was originally very confident in the strength of these humans, and thus suppressed his ferocity, wanting to persuade Ling Han and the others to retreat rather than start a battle. However, in the current situation, these humans were completely here to die. Only 2 people didn't attack, but one of them was clearly at the Mountain River tier, and no matter how strong he was still at the consummate level of the Mountain River tier. 10 tigers should be able to deal with him, right? The other one was a stupid puppet, so there was even less of a need to worry about him. He was too careful. He also felt that way. In these tens of thousands of years, who knew how many humans they had killed and eaten? At most, they would encounter some small trouble. Humans were very weak. With this thought, he relaxed and released a long tiger roar, saying, "Brothers, charge." The remaining dozens of demonic tigers instantly roared and charged into the battle. With their participation, Meng Wei and the others were naturally in even more danger. "Handsome, hurry up and help," Meng Wei called out. "Brat, you seem to be the leader of this group." The leader of the Horned Tigers stared at Ling Han and said, "Just as well, I'm also the leader. Let's have a great battle, king against king." "Sure," Ling Han said with a smile. He clenched his right fist and then punched out. Boom! Origin power burst forth, and regulations surged, transforming into a pillar of light. Pung! A wall instantly shattered, but the power didn't dissipate. Pung, 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 pung. A total of 11 walls were destroyed. It wasn't that the power of this attack had disappeared, but that it had already blasted out of the manor, and there were no more walls to destroy. The beam of light quickly turned into a small. Wherever the beam of light passed, a deep pit was left on the ground, showing how terrifying the power of this attack was. The environment of the immortal realm was very stable, and it was very difficult for Mountain River tier cultivators to cause great damage. However, now that Ling Han had advanced to the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier, his power had soared to 8 stars, and his destructive power had also become stronger. The face of the leader of the Horned Tigers twitched, and cold sweat dripped down his face. "I missed," Ling Han murmured. Then he smiled. "What did you say just now? You want to challenge me, king to king? Duel my ass." The leader of the Horned Tigers was on the verge of tears. You can't play with tigers like this. In the face of such a terrifying attack, not to mention him defending with all his strength, even if the Tiger brothers attacked together, they would probably all be killed in an instant. He finally understood that these humans were indeed very ordinary, except for this man. "Stop fighting, stop fighting," he shouted. "It's too late. I really want to eat tiger meat to nourish myself." Ling Han attacked, and with a flick of his finger, he dealt with the horned tiger. He had wanted to play for a while longer, but when he thought about the pill recipes and elixirs here, he decided to get down to business first. These tigers killed and ate people, so why should he be merciful? Sword chi sword, and wherever Ling Han passed by, all the horned tigers would be killed. Their corpses were all stored into the Black Tower. These were his spoils of war, so he naturally didn't need to share them with Meng Wei and the others. Meng Wei and the others all said, "How relaxing. It's so good to ride on someone powerful." They had thought that this would be a fierce battle, but they didn't think that it would be resolved so easily. With Meng Wei in the lead, they arrived at the depths of the manor. There was a secret room here, but it was protected by restrictions. 100 years ago, when we discovered this place, the restrictions were much more complete, Meng Wei said. 100 years ago, she had discovered this place using a secret technique and discovered that there were many alchemical pills hidden here. Those demonic tigers probably occupied this place because they wanted to open it. Ling Han speculated. After reaching the immortal level, demonic beasts weren't much different from humans in terms of martial art. Thus, alchemical pills refined by humans were also effective on demonic beasts. However, this restriction is still quite powerful. He observed. Even after such a long time, this restriction was still extremely powerful. Otherwise, with so many demonic tigers teaming up, they would have been able to break it. "Handsome, can you break it?" Meng Wei asked. "I'll give it a try." Ling Han didn't take on everything. He first walked around this place, roughly understanding this restriction. Soon he came to a conclusion. With his deduction ability, he would need around 10 years to break this restriction. Under normal circumstances, this was an impossible task. After half a year, this mystery realm would become incredibly dangerous, and all outsiders would be slaughtered. How could there be time for him? However, Ling Han had the reincarnation tree. He found an excuse, saying that he had to focus on studying this restriction and that he couldn't be disturbed. He chased Meng Wei and the others out, and then told the Azura Demon Emperor to guard this secret room. Meanwhile, he entered the Black Tower and comprehended under the reincarnation tree. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. 11 days later, Ling Han smiled confidently. He had used an extra day because entering and exiting the Black Tower and continuously observing this restriction would take up extra time. He called everyone over. "Handsome, you can break it just like that?" Meng Wei was extremely surprised. It had only been 11 days. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "I can't help it. I'm a prodigy." Everyone laughed, but Ling Han wasn't exaggerating. Breaking such a complicated restriction in 11 days was like a monster. Of course, the prerequisite was that he could succeed. Ling Han didn't waste his breath and continued to move. At one moment, he would launch a few palm strikes here and there, and at the next moment, he would launch a palm strike there. It felt as if he was putting on a show, and Hu Feiyun couldn't help but yawn. Her patience had always been very poor. However, after an hour, everyone felt their bodies become lighter for some reason, but they didn't feel any obvious changes. The restriction has been broken. Ling Han smiled and took the lead. Sure enough, he walked all the way to the door and didn't suffer any attacks at all. He pushed the large stone in the secret room. This was a stone door, and under his push, the stone door groaned and slowly opened. Everyone's eyes widened, and they were filled with anticipation. The door opened, and they saw that it was pitch black inside. However, gods naturally didn't need light to see clearly. There were rows of pill cabinets in this secret room, and the cabinets were filled with pill bottles. "We're rich! We're rich!" Meng Wei and the others shouted excitedly. Ling Han walked in first, and the others followed behind him. So many high-ranked divine pills. This is a bone polishing pill. It can increase the strength of bones. Thousand Crane Pill. It can allow one to escape from the laws of heaven and earth and fly for a period of time. Frost Pill. It can make one immune to ice secret techniques for a short period of time. Everyone looked at the labels on the pill bottles, and they were all overjoyed. However, when Meng Wei pulled out the cork of a pill bottle, she screamed in pain. "Boss, what's wrong?" "Captain, you weren't satisfied with your desires a few days ago. Can't you take it anymore?" These people teased her. The pill, it's already turned to dust. Meng Wei's face fell. It was going to be 55 soon, and she hoped that she could continue to make it to the 55 red envelope rankings. On the 5th of May, she would be able to give red envelopes to her readers and promote her works. A piece is also love, definitely good is better. Chapter 1182. P.S. Here is today's update, and at the same time, poll votes for Chidian 55 Fan Day. Everyone has a vote, and the vote will also give some coins, begging for everyone's support and appreciation. Well, everyone rushed up, and sure enough, there were no pills left in that pill bottle, only ashes at the bottom of the bottle. No way, no way. Where are the other pills? They all took down the bottles on the pill cabinet and opened them one by one to check, but without exception, because too much time had passed, not a single bottle of pills could be preserved. This one bottle was a disappointment, and it broke their hearts. Every single bottle here was at least level 5, and one pill could be sold for a sky-high price. With so many pills added together, it was an indescribably huge fortune. But the dream of becoming rich didn't last long before they were slapped out of their dreams. All ruined? Wasn't this maddening? Ling Han didn't find it strange. Time was the greatest enemy of all existence, and so what if it was a divine pill? It would still decay. Of course, the higher the level of the pill, the less likely it was to deteriorate. If it was above level 10, then it might even become sentient, develop intelligence, and activate life. This was the so-called pill spirit, a precious treasure in the world, because once a divine pill activated life, not only would its own medicinal effects not be lost, but it could also absorb the essence of heaven and earth, making the medicinal effects stronger. However, to form a pill spirit, the first requirement was that the level of the pill surpassed level 10, and added with an incredibly long time, it might not succeed. Who would be willing to leave a divine pill aside after refining it? Judging from the alchemical pills he concocted, this alchemist should be below level 9. Thus, the alchemical pills he concocted are all between level 5 and level 8, Ling Han said to himself. However, to me, the pill recipes of this level are the best. Right now, I can barely refine level 5 pills, but I will soon advance to the Sun Moon tier, so it won't be difficult to refine level 8 divine pills. Let's search, there should be pill recipes. After searching for a while, he indeed found a bookcase full of pill recipes. One pill recipe needed the thickness of a book to record, and too much time had passed, so these books had become incredibly fragile and would turn into dust with a touch. Thus, Ling Han first stored this bookcase into the Black Tower. Then, it would be impossible for them to disappear even if they wanted to. He immediately made 2 copies, then took out the original copy and said, "Leader Meng, according to our previous agreement, both sides can make a copy of all the pill formulas. I've already made a copy, and the original version is also here. You can pick one." "When did you copy this?" Meng Wei was still rummaging through the elixirs. She was unwilling to give up and wanted to see if there were any elixirs that had survived. "You choose." Ling Han wouldn't say that he had taken the time to enter into the Black Tower and instantly finished making a copy. Moreover, it was 2 copies. Meng Wei carefully compared the 2 copies, and after discovering that there was not a single word that was out of place, she nodded and said, "It's so easy to cooperate with a handsome guy. Hey, our cooperation is about to come to an end, so why don't we have a breakup party? I've been holding it in for so many days and it's so itchy." "Fuck off." Ling Han put away 1 copy and left the original version for her. In any case, it would shatter at the slightest touch. Could it be that my charm has decreased? Meng Wei wore a strange expression. Impossible. My breasts aren't small, my waist isn't thick, and my butt is still perky. Why can't I get this handsome guy? Could it be that he doesn't like women? Guess. I can hear you, Ling Han said in annoyance. Leader, leader. Someone suddenly exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. What? The sky hasn't collapsed. Even if it did, isn't there still this handsome guy to support it? Meng Wei said. There's a bottle of unspoiled alchemical pills. Someone shouted. What? Meng Wei also jumped up and rushed over. Even Ling Han was a little curious, and he followed behind her. Most of the alchemical pills here had turned to dust, but there was one bottle that was unspoiled. Even those who didn't understand alchemy could guess that this bottle of alchemical pills had to be extraordinary, which was why they had survived for so long. Berserk Blood Spirit Pill. Meng Wei took the bottle and read the label on it. What alchemical pill is this? Everyone shook their heads. They had never heard of it before. This is a miraculous pill for Sun-Moon tier cultivators. It can help Sun-Moon tier cultivators advance by a sub-minor level, saving them tens of thousands of years of time, a voice suddenly said. Who? Everyone immediately turned around and walked toward the door. I am Ji Jinping. There was a person standing at the door. However, because it was extremely dark here, they could only see a pitch-black silhouette behind him. Even so, they could still tell that this person was very tall and slender. The person paused for a moment, and then said, Hand over the divine pill, and I'll spare your lives. Meng Wei asked. Ji Jinping smiled. He opened his right hand, and an egg-sized object appeared in his palm. This is a viper poison explosion pill. Once it's thrown, it will immediately explode. Then, it will release a terrifying poison. Believe me, anyone below the Sun-Moon tier, regardless of whether they're human or demonic beast, will be poisoned to death in half a breath's time if they inhale even a sliver of this poison. Meng Wei and the others were all astonished. He wasn't lying. The viper poison explosion pill was indeed that terrifying. However, whether the object in his hand was really the viper poison explosion pill or not was still a question mark. I'll give you 15 minutes to consider. If you don't hand over the divine pill after that, I'll have no choice but to throw this viper poison explosion pill in. Ji Jinping chuckled and said, I hate killing people the most, so don't force me. No one knew whether he was speaking the truth or not. However, if he was speaking the truth, that would be far too terrifying. Meng Wei and the others didn't dare to act rashly. They were all people who lived on the edge of a knife, but it was precisely because of this that they cherished their lives. As long as they were alive, everything was possible. However, if they were dead, then there would be nothing left. Ling Han frowned. He, too, could not determine whether Ji Jinping was bluffing, or if he really had a powerful weapon in his hands. He was unafraid, but what if he dragged Meng Wei and the others into this? Since that was the case, he silently hid in the darkness, and then unleashed the annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. He didn't even need to use the ultimate technique. With his current strength, he could insta-kill a consummate level being with a normal arrow. Ji Jinping smiled and he was very pleased with himself. He had taken control of the situation by himself, and this made him feel very good about himself. However, a strong sense of danger suddenly welled up in his heart, causing his heart to contract violently and all the pores on his body to close up. Danger! He couldn't care about anything else at this moment, and he hurriedly retreated. Shoo! A streak of cold light flashed past at an astonishing speed, and it pierced through his left shoulder. The powerful force sent him flying. It was almost 55, and he hoped that he could continue to make a name for himself on the 55 red envelope rankings. By the 5th of May, he would be able to receive a rain of red envelopes to reward his readers and promote his works. A piece of cake was also love, and it was definitely better to enjoy it. Otherwise, my intelligence will be dragged down by you. All right, I've let you say so much before you die. It's time for you to be on your way. You dare to kill me? Sha Yuan was filled with shock. He felt that this was a colossal joke that was practically unacceptable. Who was he? How high was his status? Ling Han actually wanted to kill him? Ling Han didn't answer. Instead, he stretched out his right hand, and a powerful force began to gather. His killing intent was also boiling. Now it was Sha Yuan, and in the future, it would be Zhao Lun. All the debts that were owed to him, he would collect them one by one. He flicked his finger, and Xiao, a flash of sword light streaked past, slashing towards Sha Yuan. Poof! Blood splattered, but Sha Yuan wasn't sliced into two. There was a flash of golden light on his body, and it was as if he had become a golden armored god of war. Ling Han's eyes widened, and he saw that Sha Yuan's body was actually wrapped in a golden law decree. It was precisely that law decree that had activated its might in a timely manner, blocking Ling Han's sure kill attack. Evidently, this was the law decree that great General Sha had bestowed upon his son. "You, how dare you?" Sha Yuan was unable to restrain his anger, and even his voice was trembling. If this law decree had activated its might, it could only mean one thing. He had encountered a situation where he would definitely die, and that was why the law decree had activated on its own. He had almost died. "You deserve to die." Sha Yuan roared loudly. This law decree could only be activated passively, but now that it had been activated, how could he possibly miss such an opportunity? He was just about to use this opportunity to kill Ling Han. He attacked, and as his fist blasted out, the law decree increased his battle prowess. It transformed into a golden bull that charged towards Ling Han. AI, why were these rich second generations so difficult to kill? Just as Ling Han was grumbling internally, Sha Yuan gave a muffled grunt, and an expression of pain appeared on his face. The golden light on his body also trembled, and the law decree flickered between brightness and darkness as if it was about to be destroyed. That bull also dissipated on its own. Ling Han was startled at first. He hadn't even attacked, so why did Sha Yuan look like he was in agony as if his ass had been pierced? However, he immediately understood. There were restrictions here, and as long as one's power reached the Sun-Moon tier, they would be targeted. Previously, the law decree had activated its might and blocked one of his finger swords. Though its might was extraordinary, it had not reached the level of the Sun-Moon tier. But now, Sha Yuan had taken the initiative to attack and activated the law decree. His power had reached the level of the Sun-Moon tier, so it was natural that he would be targeted by the restrictions here. He had not injured the enemy, but had injured himself first. Yet Sha Yuan himself did not understand. He still thought that Ling Han had also used some kind of secret technique to target him. Not only had he not suppressed the law decree's might, he had instead drawn out the law decree's power a step further. Once the law decree was activated, its power would slowly dissipate. Even if he did not use it, he could not possibly recover it. Thus, he naturally wanted to take advantage of this rare opportunity to kill Ling Han. But with such a draw of power, he screamed even louder. The law decree continued to tremble as if it was about to be torn apart. This law decree actually exploded into pieces, turning into fragments that filled the sky. Sha Yuan also suffered a backlash, and spat out a mouthful of blood. Thankfully, he had not been sliced apart as well. His face was filled with confusion. What was going on? Even when the law decree was activated, this was the result. He pointed at Ling Han, and said in a trembling voice, "What demonic technique did you use? How ignorant." Ling Han shook his head. With a flick of his finger, sword light streaked past, slicing toward Sha Yuan. Ji Jinping and the others all pounced out, helping Sha Yuan neutralize this attack. But though Ling Han had done it casually, his present power had reached 8 stars above the peak stage of the mountain river tier. How powerful was this? All 4 of them were sent flying by this finger sword, but Sha Yuan luckily escaped death because of this. "If you want to help him, I'll kill all of you," Ling Han said indifferently. "Who else wants to stop me?" It was going to be 55 soon. He hoped that he could continue to make it to the top 55 red envelope list. By the 5th of May, the red envelope reign would be able to give back to the readers and promote his work. A piece is also love, definitely good is better. Chapter 1185. You're that mysterious person. The 4 people from the Majestic Heaven sect all pointed at Ling Han. Only now did they realize that this person couldn't possibly be the country bumpkin that Sha Yuan spoke of, but was the mysterious elite that had wounded Ji Jinping with an arrow. How was this possible? When did such a powerful king tier appear among the younger generation? Just that strike alone was definitely on par with He Tao, Wu Zhi, and the other king tiers. Ling Han's gaze swept over, and he said, "Leave behind your spatial spirit tool and scram." These people wanted to rob him, so there was naturally no reason for him to let them off. That would be letting them off too easily. "Don't go too far," Ji Jinping shouted angrily. However, blood was still spurting from his shoulder, greatly affecting his image, and he had no might to speak of. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "The path you guys walked before was too smooth, and you actually said such childish words. Humph, in front of me, who do you think you are? If you don't obediently leave behind your spatial spirit tools, then I'll kill you." Ji Jinping felt extremely humiliated, but couldn't help but remember that he had also used the viper poison explosion pill to threaten them before, saying that he would kill them if they didn't hand over the berserk blood spirit pill. Now it was just an eye for an eye. Fairness. In this world, whoever was stronger would be the representative of fairness. "You win." Ji Jinping and the others all took out their spatial rings and threw them on the ground, appearing extremely angry. They could all be called prodigies, and it had always been them who did whatever they wanted. When had they ever suffered such humiliation? Sha Yuan also threw out a spatial ring, and was about to leave with Ji Jinping and the others. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh, and said, "Young Master Sha, has your head been kicked by a donkey? Did I say you could leave? Ling Han, if you really want to kill me, aren't you afraid that my father will fly into a rage and come here to take your dog life?" Sha Yuan said harshly. The decree was destroyed, and he finally felt true fear. When he said these words, he appeared fierce but was actually cowardly. Ling Han shook his head and said, "I'm sure Great General Sha wouldn't mind having one less son like you who deceives his father." "Sir, you've already taken the money. There's no need to be so overbearing," advised the blue-robed youth. The 5 of them were together, and they naturally didn't want their companions to be slaughtered. "I'll kill your entire family, and then I'll tell you that since he's already dead, there's no need to be so overbearing. Are you happy or not?" Ling Han glared at him, then said impatiently, "In 3 breaths, all of you scram. Otherwise, you can accompany him in death." He was truly enraged. His terrifying aura transformed into a vast ocean, incomparably frightening. Ji Jinping and the others were all astonished. This was definitely a king tier. How can a king allow others to challenge his authority? Their faces were all pale, and they all turned around to leave. They did not dare to say another word, lest they were killed by Ling Han as well. Since Ling Han had already decided to kill a key disciple of the Majestic Heaven sect, and the son of a heavenly body tier elite at that, killing a few more key disciples and descendants of the heavenly body tier would not be a big deal. "Don't go. Save me. Save me." Sha Yuan was dumbfounded. This was the first time he had felt death so close to him, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Ji Jinping and the others ignored him and fled very quickly. Sha Yuan blankly turned around and looked at Ling Han for a while. Then he suddenly said, "Don't kill me. I can be your friend. I'm the son of an elite of the heavenly body tier, so you definitely won't lose out if you have me as a friend." Ling Han broke into a smile and said, "I really did not want to say this to scare you. However, you are so full of yourself, so if I don't deal a blow to your ego, I would really feel bad. Speaking of friends, I have a saint as a friend. Furthermore, the Empress will also be my wife in future. This friendship of yours, I really can't accept it." Sha Yuan was dumbfounded. "You must you be lying to me. The saint? How could it be that only Genesis tiers could be called saints? If you could befriend a saint, then wouldn't you be able to do as you please in this world? And you even said you wanted to marry the Empress? How high and mighty was the Empress? Even his old man could only drool in secret, so how could Ling Han have a chance? I am about to die, so there is no need for me to lie to you. However, there is also no need for me to make you believe me." Ling Han smiled and said, "Are you ready to die?" Sha Yuan felt a chill run through his body, and his legs involuntarily turned to jelly. He knelt down with a paw and cried, "Don't kill me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." "That's right, no one wants to die." Ling Han raised a hand and said, "But because of your own desires, you coveted the fateful opportunities that I possessed and sent people to hunt me down. If it were not for the fact that I have a few tricks up my sleeve, I'm afraid that grass would have already grown over my grave." He shot out a punch, and a terrifying power descended. Pa! Sha Yuan was instantly blasted apart. His body and spirit were both destroyed, and he turned into a mist of blood that filled the air. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. "Hey, handsome guy, you killed a disciple of the majestic heaven sect, so will you kill us as well?" Meng Wei swallowed with difficulty. The others hurriedly cast looks at their captain, meaning to say, "Why are you asking? Why don't you pretend to be confused and sneak away? Aren't you reminding us by asking now?" Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "It's fine. In any case, we have already let 4 of them escape, so it doesn't matter if we have a few more alive. You guys won't go and tell on me, right?" Meng Wei and the others hurriedly shook their heads. "That's good." Ling Han picked up the spatial rings that Ji Jinping and the others had left behind, and took out the items inside. Then he stored them in the Black Tower. If he kept them in the spatial ring, they would be able to link him to the murderer if they were found in the future. However, if he stored them in the Black Tower, who would be able to find them? "Handsome guy, this bottle of Berserk blood spirit pills belongs to you." Meng Wei handed over the bottle of alchemical pills that she had obtained previously. Ling Han smiled and said, "Didn't we agree to split it evenly? You saved us again, and we have obtained so many pill recipes. We have already profited greatly. As humans, we cannot be too greedy." Meng Wei shook her head. "All right." Ling Han accepted the alchemical pill. In the process of obtaining the treasures here, he was the one who had contributed the most. Taking one more bottle was considered one bottle, but in truth, it was not an exaggeration to say that there was only one alchemical pill inside. "In that case, we'll be taking our leave now, handsome." Meng Wei cupped her hands in greeting. After Ling Han nodded, she added, "I really don't want to have a breakup party. Get lost." After watching Meng Wei and the others leave, Ling Han and the others also set off. However, Ling Han's attention was focused on the pill recipe he had just obtained. He was definitely unable to concoct alchemical pills above level 5, as the level of his divine sense was a little too low. However, if it was level 5, he should just barely be able to concoct it. After all, his divine sense had been continuously tempered by the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and was far stronger than an ordinary mountain river tier cultivator's. Moreover, he had also stepped into the pinnacle level. He searched for a while and discovered that the Berserk blood spirit pill was among these pill recipes. Chapter 1186. P.S. Here's today's update, and by the way, pull votes for Chidian 55th Fan Day. Everyone has a vote, and the vote will also send some coins, begging for everyone's support and appreciation. The Berserk blood spirit pill could raise one's cultivation level by a subminor level at the Sun-Moon tier. Moreover, there was no cultivation level restriction. In other words, a cultivator at the middle stage of the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier would be able to reach the late stage of the low extreme by consuming one, and a cultivator at the early stage of the consummate level could similarly reach the middle stage of the consummate level by consuming one. This effect was too shocking. However, when Ling Han looked at the ingredients listed in the prescription, he grimaced. The ingredients required to concoct such a heaven-defying pill were naturally extremely astonishing. Among them, the most important of the main ingredients was called the Red Rain Divine King Fruit. Though it was only a level 8 godly medicine, it was incredibly rare. Furthermore, the age requirement for it to be able to be used as medicine was as high as 1 million years. Even if it was placed in the Black Tower and nurtured from scratch, it would still take as long as 1,000 years. To immortals, 1,000 years was indeed not a long time. Mountain river tier cultivators might not even be able to take a single step forward, but Ling Han's advancement was too fast, so 1,000 years was a little hard for him to accept. However, if he encountered the red rain divine king fruit, he still had to get it. Even if it wasn't for himself, he could also prepare it for his brothers, his friends, his beautiful wives, his parents, and his children. In short, the more of such precious medicine, the better, and he would never turn his back on it. Of course, the effects were obvious even when consumed by cultivators at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. The Berserk Blood Spirit pill was naturally a level 8 divine pill, and there was a certain degree of danger if consumed by cultivators at the low extreme, medium extreme, or high extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. There was a possibility that their bodies would explode. Thus, if these people were to consume the Berserk Blood Spirit pill, they would need the protection of their elders, who would be able to suppress the pill's effects with great strength. Otherwise, if they were to die from consuming the pill, it would be too unjust. Ling Han set the Berserk Blood Spirit pill aside. Firstly, his divine soul was not strong enough. Secondly, he did not have the ingredients to refine it. The first pill he prepared was the 1,000 Crane pill. This could allow cultivators below the heavenly body tier to also be able to fly, but only during the duration of the effects of the alchemical pill. Moreover, their speed could be increased explosively, so it was very practical. At a critical moment, it could be used to save lives. Life-saving pills were definitely the most valuable. The three of them hurried along during the day and stopped to rest at night. Traveling in such a dangerous place, it was only natural that they would try their best to maintain their peak condition. At night, Ling Han would come to the reincarnation tree to comprehend the pill recipe. He was the Alchemy Emperor, so he was naturally a maniac in this aspect. Once he started researching, he wouldn't be able to stop. For a good few days, he sat alone under the reincarnation tree, and Shui Yanyu was not used to this. Usually, Ling Han would always tease her, causing her to blush and feel incredibly embarrassed. But now, he actually treated her as air for several days in a row. He didn't even give her a flirtatious look. She was infuriated. She either behaved like a hooligan, or she behaved like a proper gentleman. She was really extreme. After traveling for a few more days, a mountain appeared in front of them. This mountain could only be counted as half a mountain. Because it was almost cut off at the waist, the remaining half of the mountain seemed a little abrupt. There were silhouettes flashing on the mountain, and it wasn't just one or two, but many. Ling Han and the other two walked to the foot of the mountain, and only then did they know that this was a medicinal mountain, and there were many divine medicines here. Low-level divine medicines could be plucked at will, but high-level divine medicines were protected by restrictions, and it was very difficult to remove them. Some were completely impossible to remove, and would require at least the action of a heavenly body tier elite. Ling Han couldn't help but be delighted. Perhaps there was a ripe red rain divine king fruit here? Then he only had to advance into the Sun-Moon tier, and he would be able to concoct the Berserk Blood Spirit pill, and his strength would soar. Moreover, even if it wasn't for the red rain divine king fruit, as long as it was a divine medicine, wasn't it worth plucking? The three of them had clearly come too late. The low-level divine medicines that weren't protected by restrictions had all been plucked away. However, Ling Han wasn't very interested in these divine medicines either. The Black Tower had already nurtured a large number of divine medicines, though their grade was relatively low. They walked, searching, and very soon discovered a few divine medicines that were protected by restrictions. They were as high as level 7, but they hadn't matured yet. According to Ling Han's speculation, there should be a mother medicine that had matured long ago, but because it hadn't been plucked away, the seed had fallen where it was, and thus a few stalks had grown. That was because this area was designed for a single divine medicine to grow in the first place, and now there were a few stalks growing. Though it didn't seem crowded, there was clearly not enough nutrients, causing these divine medicines to appear very dispirited. "I've made you suffer, but I'll save you," Ling Han couldn't help but say with a smile. "I've never seen you so shameless. You obviously want to use me to concoct alchemical pills, and you still act like you're a savior." Hu Feiyun made a face at him. "Then don't eat the alchemical pills I concoct," Ling Han said with a smile. "I was just saying, don't be so petty," Hu Feiyun said with a pout. Ling Han circled around the divine medicines a few times, and first memorized the restrictions. Then, he started to make predictions under the reincarnation tree. After a while, he entered the Black Tower and began to dispel the restrictions. This took much more time than he had imagined. After 17 days, Ling Han finally dispelled the restrictions and stored these level 7 divine medicines into the Black Tower. At this rate, even if I spend all of half a year here, I won't be able to take away many divine medicines. Ling Han shook his head. Let's search first and see if there are any Red Rain Divine King fruits. This is the most valuable divine medicine to me at this stage. Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun naturally wouldn't have any objections. Moreover, they could also enjoy the divine pills he concocted, so there was even less reason for them to object. Ling Han gave up on the idea of capturing them all in one go, and began to search for the Red Rain Divine King fruits. If he could find them, he would do his best to harvest them, and if he couldn't, he would come back to search for the most valuable divine medicines here. No matter what, he had to take a few back. However, even he had to spend over a dozen days to dispel a restriction, which was equivalent to over a dozen years' time. Others naturally could only look on and sigh at their inadequacy. Thus, unless they brought along a special treasure that could dispel the restrictions, most people could only harvest the ordinary divine medicines that weren't protected by the restrictions. Because he only searched and didn't take, only half a day later, Ling Han had more or less searched through this herb mountain. When he was about to finish, his eyes finally lit up, and he showed an expression of pleasant surprise. There really are Red Rain Divine King fruits. Ling Han laughed loudly. In front of him, there was a tree that was 30 meters tall. It was completely crimson, and its leaves were formed from flames, burning fiercely. And between the leaves, there were multiple fruits. These fruits gave off steam, and like raindrops, the steam fell on the fruits. It was very mystical. Ling Han was naturally happy. Though these fruits weren't completely ripe, they were already very big. If they were planted in the Black Tower, perhaps they would be completely ripe in another 3 to 5 years' time. This was really a great gift. There were a whole 27 fruits, and according to the calculation of refining 1 berserk blood spirit pill for each fruit, that would be 27 pills. The prerequisite was that he succeeded every time and didn't waste a single one. This was naturally impossible. Who could refine alchemical pills in one go? Ling Han rubbed his hands and began to study how to break the restriction. It was going to be 55 soon. He hoped that he could continue to make it to the top 55 red envelope list. By the 5th of May, the red envelope reign would be able to give back to the readers and promote his work. A peace is also love, definitely good is better. Chapter 1188. A Beautiful Romance. Even if her opponent was a ginseng, Shinju clearly wouldn't allow the old ginseng to attack her chest. She hurriedly activated an origin power shield. Poof! The old ginseng unleashed a beam of regulation light, which forcefully slashed apart the origin power shield. Pieces of cloth flew through the air, and Shinju's bra was instantly torn apart. However, what disappointed the old ginseng was that there wasn't a towering jade mountain under this white dress. Instead, there was a golden undergarment that tightly wrapped around her chest. Could this be the legendary golden breast? The old ginseng couldn't take his eyes off her, and even saliva was dripping out of his mouth. However, he was a spiritual medicine, and his saliva was also extremely fragrant. It could be considered a great tonic. Brat, you actually dare. The old ginseng charged towards Ling Han, his anger soaring. Be bastard. Shenju was so angry that her body trembled. She was one of the 6 great king tiers, yet she was being teased by a ginseng. How could she not be furious? Fortunately, she was wearing a treasured garment. Otherwise, she would really have to expose herself to the old ginseng. She was furious, and she waved her slender hand. Terrifying divine chains intertwined and shot towards the old ginseng. She had no intention of capturing him alive. In any case, ginseng could be eaten even if it was smashed. It would only slightly affect its medicinal effects. Golden breast, why are you so fixated on your grandpa? The old ginseng dodged as he teased, this brat is also a part of the people who killed your golden breast. Why don't you beat him up as well? He was still complaining about being wronged. Die. Shinju, screamed. She was a king tier of the younger generation, and she should be calm and composed. She wouldn't be shocked even if the sky collapsed before her eyes. However, this old ginseng was far too provocative. She was enraged in just a few moves, and she wouldn't stop until she tore him into pieces. There's nothing I can do. Grandpa Ginseng is too handsome. This golden breast loves me so much that she wants to kill me so that she can be with me forever. The old ginseng sighed, looking extremely narcissistic. Grandpa Ginseng is really a sinner. Ling Han had an urge to vomit. As he teamed up with Shinju, he said, "Lowly Ginseng, I've never seen anything more shameless than you." Of course, Grandpa Ginseng is unique. The old ginseng was smug. However, he immediately flew into a rage. You dare to insult your grandpa? This old ginseng was too despicable, taking advantage of people the moment he opened his mouth. Inescapable net. Shinju shouted. Her regulations and origin power intertwined, forming a massive net. Ling Han also summoned his crimson ground locking net and used it to trap the old ginseng. His front, back, left and right were all sealed off, yet this old ginseng burrowed into the ground. Xiao, he instantly disappeared. He was originally a ginseng that grew in the soil. After attaining Dao, not only did his ability in this aspect not disappear, but it was also strengthened. His earth escape technique was shockingly strong. It was gone. Swooshi was just about to say that it had disappeared when the old ginseng suddenly charged out from the ground. This old ginseng was truly despicable. It had actually charged out from between Shinju's legs and was heading straight for her lower abdomen. Shinju was infuriated, and her black hair danced wildly in the wind. Divine light also intertwined around her body, transforming her into a layer of frost. Your grandpa is going to freeze to death. The old ginseng was frozen solid, and he fell to the ground. However, before Ling Han and Shinju could capture him, he once again burrowed into the ground. Ling Han was astonished. Even though Shinju had been tricked badly by the old ginseng, this woman was truly powerful. The might of her frost was extremely frightening. Ling Han estimated that if he was struck by her at close range, he would most likely be frozen solid as well. Even if his body wasn't damaged, Shinju could use divine chains to bind him or kill the people around him. A king tier was not to be underestimated. Golden milk, remember not to wear long pants under your skirt next time. You made Grandpa Ginseng lose everything. The old ginseng appeared in the distance. However, he didn't dare to get any closer. It was clear that he had suffered. Shinju didn't say anything. She merely stared at the old ginseng. She waved her hand, and a layer of frost immediately spread toward the old ginseng. Grandpa Ginseng won't play with you anymore. The old ginseng hurriedly burrowed into the ground and fled. He was only extremely fast. However, in terms of battle prowess, he was far inferior to Shinju and Ling Han. If he dared to face them head-on, he would be courting death. For example, Ling Han hadn't used his flame divine patterns earlier because he didn't want to injure this treasured ginseng. Shinju was furious. Not only had she failed to obtain a godly medicine, but she had also been tricked badly. This was unprecedented. This despicable ginseng isn't simple. Not only is it of an extremely high level, but it has also existed for countless years before gaining intelligence. It can even use the regulations of heaven and earth. It has truly attained Tao, Ling Han said. Shinju's pretty face was filled with rage. Who cares if it's attained Tao or not? I'm definitely going to kill it. She had almost exposed her chest, so she didn't want to stay here any longer. She nodded at Ling Han and turned to leave. How fun! Hu Feiyun's eyes lit up. If you were tricked by that despicable ginseng, you probably wouldn't be able to laugh anymore. Ling Han shook his head. This old ginseng was far too fast. Most likely, only Sun Moon tier elites would be able to defeat it. Let's go. Ling Han decisively set aside his greed for this godly medicine. Since he couldn't defeat it, what was the point of wasting time? They descended the herb mountain. Meanwhile, Ling Han was thinking about how great it would be if he could completely open this mystery realm. That would give him enough time to store all the godly medicines here into the Black Tower. However, if someone had the ability to open this mystery realm, what could he do? The mystery realm wasn't peaceful. There were many demonic beasts here, and they killed each other. They also ate humans, and they continuously attacked them. However, they were all killed by Ling Han and stored into the Black Tower as food. He had accumulated a large amount of spiritual meat, and after eating it with Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun every day, they could clearly feel their stamina improving. A few days later, another mountain appeared in front of them. However, Ling Han definitely didn't believe that this was a naturally formed mountain. This was because this mountain was completely like a soaring eagle, and every detail of it could be seen clearly. Could it be that this was formed from a dead demonic beast? Immortal-level demonic beasts could easily reach tens of thousands of meters in height. Thus, although this eagle mountain was ridiculously tall, it wasn't impossible that it had been formed from a demonic beast. Moreover, this was the place where the most intense competition in the entire mystery realm was. Thousand-source true fluid would appear here. Every day, when the sun and moon intersected, a drop of thousand-source true fluid would fall from the eagle's beak on the mountain, causing intense competition. However, after the ancient site opened, thousand-source true fluid would only appear after about 3 months. Moreover, it would only last for 10 days. After tens of thousands of years, this pattern was naturally known by everyone. Everyone guessed that when the ancient site opened, some kind of change would occur, and this change would slowly form thousand-source true fluid. As for the specifics, no one knew. Calculating the time, there were still a few days until the 3-month deadline. Ling Han sized up this tall mountain, and he suddenly had a strong urge to run up it. Chapter 1189. It was a simple principle. If one could occupy the position of the eagle's beak, the thousand-source true fluid wouldn't appear so easily. However, if it were that simple, would there still be people waiting at the foot of the mountain? They would definitely be fighting each other to occupy the most advantageous position. This eagle mountain was not easy to climb. Ling Han knew after trying it out. There was a frightening gale on the mountain, and even his divine body couldn't withstand it. He had just advanced, and a great many wounds had already appeared on his body. If he stayed for a while longer, he would definitely be reduced to a skeleton. If the gales became stronger the higher he climbed, he wouldn't even be able to keep his skeleton. Instead, he would be sliced into pieces, and his body and spirit would be destroyed. Is it really impossible to climb up? Because there were still a few days left, Ling Han began to try to resist the gales. However, he quickly came to a conclusion. The higher he climbed, the more destructive the gales would be. It wasn't a power attack. If the gales were too powerful, they would be blown down. However, he hadn't been blown down the mountain. He had merely been severely injured. This meant that the gales were the power of regulations. Thus, although their power was ordinary, their destructive power was incredibly terrifying. At least comparable to the medium extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. Otherwise, they couldn't have cut my skin with a single blow. Ling Han speculated. However, this was only the foot of the mountain. If it continued like this, he could use the indestructible heaven scroll to go against the wind. Forget it. I'll just wait here. With my current battle prowess, it shouldn't be difficult to obtain a few drops of thousand-source true fluid. The three of them found a remote place. This way, they could enter the Black Tower without anyone noticing. Ling Han cultivated and comprehended alchemy simultaneously. When he had time, he would also refine a few cauldrons of 7 ultimate flying flame pills. This was a good way to earn money. After a few more days, the crowd became uneasy. The reason was simple. The 3 months were almost up, and the fiercest competition was about to begin. Even heavenly body tier elites would be tempted by the thousand-source true fluid. If they obtained a drop and didn't use it themselves, they would sell it for an astronomical price. Oh, that's right. Say, Senior, do you have any thousand-source true fluid that you can give me? Ling Han asked the notionless saint, who was wrapped around the reincarnation tree. You're a saint, so you're definitely more powerful than an eternal river tier elite, right? My main body has already refined the body, so where would the thousand source true fluid come from? Notionless Saint harumphed. Besides, there's no way a saint can produce the thousand source true fluid. If the body doesn't melt, then a saint bug will appear. Sigh, what a useless piece of trash, completely useless. Ling Han sighed, causing Notionless Saint to howl in anger. To think that he, a mighty saint, was actually being looked down upon by Ling Han. Ling Han asked Shui Yinyu and Hu Feiyun to stand off to the side. Once the fight for the drop began, it would be incredibly terrifying and cruel. Perhaps even if the 6 king tiers managed to obtain a drop, they would have no choice but to immediately flee. Otherwise, if they were ganged up on by everyone, they would definitely suffer. One had to realize that there were many powerful forces here that had nurtured special fighters. These fighters would sever their own cultivation level, then use forbidden alchemical pills to increase their power. Their battle prowess was infinitely close to the Sun-Moon tier, and they wouldn't be any weaker than those at the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier. As expected, Gao Huang's greed knows no bounds. He actually wants me to bring 3 drops of thousand source true fluid to him. I really don't know what's in his head. How could he make such a request? Ling Han shook his head. However, putting aside the fact that only 10 drops of thousand source true fluid could be produced here, even if there were 100 or 1,000 drops, and he had already taken most of them, he definitely wouldn't give a single drop to Gao Huang. But someone pointed at the summit of the mountain and said, "The thousand source true fluid is forming." Although this mountain was tall, everyone here was an immortal, and all of them possessed astonishing eyesight. They could clearly see that there was a drop of liquid forming near the eagle's beak. However, it wasn't large enough, so it hadn't fallen yet. Everyone instantly began to sharpen their weapons. Obtaining a drop of thousand source true fluid could save them tens of thousands of years of hard work. Ling Han didn't move. After all, the mountain winds here were very unpredictable. Who knew which direction the drop of thousand source true fluid would drift to when it fell? If he tried to snatch a spot now, it would be completely ridiculous. Time passed slowly, and the droplet of water grew larger at a steady pace. After an entire day, the drop of liquid finally reached the size of a pinky finger. It trembled slightly, and then broke free from the boulder before floating down. A gust of mountain wind blew over, and the drop of liquid instantly changed direction. Ling Han attacked. He stomped his foot, and a burst of astonishing speed erupted from his body. The terrifying thing about body cultivators was the speed at which they could activate and the explosive speed they could unleash in a short period of time. Shio. He was as fast as lightning. He was far too powerful now, and he didn't even need to move. No one could stop him. Instead, the gust of wind he created powerful waves that knocked everyone around him off their feet. This was the ultimate power. 9 stars. At this moment, it was time for the 8 immortals to display their respective abilities. The elderly cultivators consumed the forbidden medicine, and their power began to soar. They were close to the Sun-Moon tier, and then they also charged over, chasing after the drop of thousand source true fluid. In the face of such power, even cultivators at the consummate level of the Mountain River tier were completely powerless. They would be crushed into pieces with a single collision. No one cared about others. What a joke! With the thousand source true fluid right in front of them, who would care about others? Moreover, wasn't everyone here for the thousand source true fluid? Thus, standing here was equivalent to participating in the competition. It wouldn't be unreasonable for them to be sent flying or even crushed into pieces. Competition for treasures in martial art had always been intertwined with blood and death. Ling Han wasn't too bad. He had no intention of going on a killing spree, and he merely repelled everyone and restrained his power. In comparison, those who had severed their cultivation and consumed the forbidden medicine were much more ruthless. They didn't care about anything at all. They had severed their cultivation, which was equivalent to severing their lifespan. Although their clans and sects would definitely compensate them, it would be ridiculous if their mental state could remain the same as before. Thus, Some people even deliberately killed others to vent their anger and resentment on others. The drop of thousand source true fluid had already fallen to the foot of the mountain, and it was the closest to a gray-robed elder. He laughed loudly and said, "I'll accept this drop of divine fluid. Wait for another day." He stretched out his hand to grab it. Once he stored it in his spatial spirit tool, he would immediately flee far away. He definitely wouldn't stay here any longer. There was a limit to how long the pill could last, and his power could only last for half a month at most. Moreover, since it was a forbidden pill, it would definitely be extremely destructive to one's body. Taking one pill in 100 years was already his limit. If he took two in succession, he would be completely courting death. Shoo! A cold light streaked past as fast as lightning. It was the annihilating dragon star arrow. The gray-robed elder had no choice but to raise his hand to block it. However, this arrow was imbued with a powerful force, and his body was immediately knocked off course, away from the drop of divine fluid. Damn it! The elder stomped the ground forcefully, and his body returned to its original position. He stretched out his hand to grab it again. However, with this delay, a few elites nearby had already rushed over, and they also began to fight over the drop of divine fluid. Chapter 1190. Powerful existences appeared one after another, each displaying their own abilities. Right now, there were only 8 people who had reached the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. However, Hu Feiyun didn't participate in the competition, so there were only 7 people left. In theory, the 7 of them should be the strongest, but that was only in theory. There were also many people who had severed their own cultivation. There were actually over 100 of them, and each of them was no weaker than the 7 king tiers. Added with the fact that they had once advanced to the sun-moon tier and grasped stronger regulations of heaven and earth, their battle prowess was incredibly powerful. There wasn't even a need for 100 people. Only 10 people were needed to team up, and even Shinju, Shirangwa, and the other young king tiers would have to frown and retreat temporarily. They would have to wait until the medicinal effects of their opponents disappeared before forcefully suppressing them. These hundreds of people fought, and the scene immediately became chaotic. However, Shinju, Wuangwa, and the others still displayed their superior prowess. Everyone's strength was about the same, but that didn't mean that their battle prowess was the same. This also depended on the techniques that they had mastered. The king tier was a king tier after all. Their cultivation levels were similar, but their battle prowess was a level higher. Apart from Wu Zhe, who was slightly weaker, the other 5 all charged at the very front, blasting away the others as they fought for the drop of thousand source true fluid. Scram! An elder stretched out a hand and pressed it down on Ling Han. Power that was close to the sun-moon tier vibrated. This was the highest power that this place could contain. At least, this was the case for outsiders. Anyone who exceeded this power would be targeted by the restrictions. It's almost invincible. You're already so old, yet you're still so blunt with your words. You're really asking for a beating. Ling Han humphed. He unsheathed his divine demon sword and unleashed the lightning sword technique. What? The old man let out a muffled groan. His body had already been struck by the sword, and he was instantly sent flying. He turned pale with fright. This sword was too fast. He almost didn't catch the sword light's trajectory before he was cut down. Furthermore, the destructive power of this sword was extremely shocking. It tore apart his elemental energy shield and entered his flesh. Hiss! If they were to face each other head-on, the other party would definitely be able to cut him into pieces with a dozen or so sword strikes. How is that possible? So fast and so strong, how could they fuse together? Before he could even finish his thought, Ling Han had already charged over. Peng, peng, peng. After a few slashes, even more elites were sent flying, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. He felt that no matter how many times he tried, he would not be able to break through. Unless he was a lot stronger or had an advantage in numbers, he would definitely not be able to win in a one-on-one battle. Moreover, he would lose very quickly. Ling Han had been invincible all along the way, and had become the 7th young king tier in this place. Among the others, he should be ranked 6th. He was clearly stronger than Wu Zhe, because Wu Zhe had not been able to have such an overwhelming advantage when fighting against veteran elites. Damn it! Several of the veteran experts who had been sent flying were infuriated, and they launched a counterattack. All kinds of light danced chaotically, interweaving with each other as they attacked Ling Han. Ling Han laughed heartily, and simply borrowed their attacks to increase his speed. Pung, he was like a human cannonball, instantly blasting away the dozen or so people in front of him. Bearing the combined strength of quite a few experts, this collision of his was naturally extremely terrifying. Ping 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 ping. The crowd was sent flying like flowers scattered by heavenly maidens. However, Ling Han acted as if nothing had happened, and he continued to charge forward. The people nearby were all stunned. What kind of fighting style was this? He was like a fucking human-shaped weapon. Was there really such an exaggeration? After being bombarded by a series of attacks, he borrowed the force of the attacks to charge forward and knock away all those in his way. With this kind of defense, he was practically an undying monster. Who could injure him? Ling Han had already charged into the core of the battlefield. This was the battlefield of He Tao, Shinju, and the others. They continued to fight over the drop of divine liquid, yet none of them could succeed. Due to the collisions of all kinds of attacks, the divine liquid continued to bounce around in the sky. Humph! Shen Zhong'er and the others were extremely displeased that there was another competitor, and they attacked without holding back. Although they had already reached an agreement to work together to open a treasure trove in the end, they were still competitors before this. However, they all had a bottom line, and they definitely wouldn't kill the other 6 people. Ling Han laughed heartily. He completely disregarded the attacks of the 6 people, and he directly grabbed that drop of thousand source true fluid. His physique was freakish, and he could do as he pleased. Ping 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 ping. Countless attacks blasted toward him, yet Ling Han didn't even try to block them. However, these attacks only tore his clothes into shreds, and left a few bloody marks on his skin. The 5 king tiers attacked together, yet they were only able to scratch Ling Han's skin a little. Everyone was petrified. Meanwhile, Ling Han took advantage of the chaos to snatch the flying drop of thousand source true fluid and put it into his black tower. Hand it over. The 5 king tiers attacked in unison. Hurry up and hand it over. More veteran elites also attacked from the periphery. Their attacks covered the sky, and it was as if the heavens were collapsing. It was an incredibly terrifying scene. Ling Han couldn't even be bothered to parry the attacks, and he simply crossed his arms over his chest. Divine patterns intertwined with the attacks, creating a dazzling scene. Any one of these attacks was close to the level of the Sun-Moon tier. With so many attacks raining down at once, even an elite at the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier would pale in fright. He definitely wouldn't dare to face them head-on. However, Ling Han didn't dodge or evade, and took all of the attacks head-on. Boom! The earth trembled, and shock waves surged. The sky was filled with dust. They saw that Ling Han had been sent flying. However, when he landed on the ground, everyone discovered to their astonishment that there were only some superficial wounds on his body. Putting aside the fact that he hadn't been smashed into smithereens, there wasn't even a single bone in his body that was broken. You want me to hand it over? That'll depend on whether you have the strength to do so. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, Come, I don't mind playing with you all. You're being targeted by so many elites, yet you're actually just playing around? How arrogant! However, everyone had to admit that his physique was monstrous. What had just happened was clear proof. Even when 100 or so king tiers attacked him simultaneously, he was still completely unscathed. Then, who could truly threaten him? The 5 king tiers stopped first, and the other elites also stopped one after another. There was no point in continuing to fight, as they couldn't possibly snatch back the thousand-source true fluid from Ling Han's hands. I'm done, Ling Han said with a grin, and sat down on the ground. Why haven't you left yet? Someone asked. According to convention, those who had obtained thousand-source true fluid would immediately leave. This was because it was far too dangerous to stay. They would be surrounded and attacked by others, and they wouldn't be a match for them no matter how powerful they were. Moreover, those who could obtain thousand-source true fluid were definitely elites. If such an elite left, there would be one less competitor, which would be beneficial to the remaining people. This was the convention. Why should I leave? Ling Han asked with a smile. His physique was invincible, so he could naturally stay and fight for more thousand-source true fluid. After all, there was no rule stating that he had to leave after obtaining a single drop. Chapter 1192. Ling Han was very powerful, truly very powerful. However, facing several dozen pseudo-Sun Moon tier elites, as well as 3 young king tiers, he was unable to break out of their encirclement. He was forcefully trapped, and only when the thousand-source true fluid was claimed did everyone release their encirclement. When the 5th drop of divine fluid appeared, the other half of the group began to surround him, and those who had previously surrounded him began to fight over it. Ling Han was dumbfounded. He had actually become public enemy number 1, and everyone was targeting him. Fuck, how could they be so shameless? Even further away, those who weren't qualified to compete for the divine fluid were all filled with admiration for Ling Han. He was only one person, yet he was able to force all the elites to team up against him. In fact, half of the elites had been sent to surround him, and even the young king tiers had participated. This showed just how powerful Ling Han was. Even Yang Hao hadn't received such treatment in the past. He had no choice but to retreat after being ganged up on. At least in the mountain river tier, Ling Han had already surpassed Yang Hao. In fact, he could even be considered the strongest person in history. The 6th drop, the 7th drop. The elites continued to switch shifts, firmly trapping Ling Han in place. With so many people suppressing him together, although they could only inflict a small wound on Ling Han, they were completely capable of trapping him. How depressing! How did you guys suddenly become so united? Ling Han was extremely displeased, but the others didn't give him a chance. They continued to switch shifts until the 10th drop of divine fluid appeared. Those who had stopped him in the first round were no longer willing to give up. This was because the 11th drop of divine fluid hadn't appeared, and if they tried to stop Ling Han again, they would lose a round. The scene became chaotic again. Ling Han laughed loudly. This was what he had been waiting for. As he charged forward, he was invincible. Even veteran elites were sent flying by a single strike of his sword. If he encountered young king tiers, he would just have to take their attacks head-on. After a fierce battle, Ling Han successfully obtained the 4th drop of thousand-source true fluid, setting a new record. A single person had managed to obtain close to half of the divine liquid. This was a miracle, and perhaps no one would be able to make another breakthrough in the future. However, as long as this mystery realm still existed, Ling Han's achievements today had to be mentioned when talking about the thousand-source true fluid. It was clearly impossible to snatch the divine liquid from Ling Han. Who could break through his defenses? Here, even the power of the decree was restricted. Ling Han's defense was unbreakable. Thus, everyone merely cast a deep and meaningful glance at Ling Han before swaggering off. Even more people were calculating in their hearts. This was a super genius that was slowly rising up, and his future accomplishments would definitely not be inferior to Yang Hao's. Should they make friends with him? Brother Ling, let's meet at the appointed place. Shenju, He Tao, and the others left one after another. King tiers were indeed king tiers. Among the 6 of them, aside from Wu Zhe, everyone had obtained a drop of thousand-source true fluid, which was worthy of their strength. However, Wu Zhe had only broken through to the pinnacle realm not long ago, and his strength was much weaker than before. This time, he had gained nothing. However, the 6 king tiers only had one more drop of thousand-source true fluid than Ling Han. In comparison, they naturally paled in comparison. Ling Han nodded at them. Competing was one thing, but opening the treasure trove in the future was a completely different matter. Ling Han had always been in favor of healthy competition, as long as one didn't use underhanded methods. Han Lin, 8 people, peered. 7 of them were extremely young, while the last one was an elder. He was an elite that had severed his own cultivation level. At this time, he had consumed a forbidden alchemical pill, and his power had almost reached the Sun Moon tier. The aura that he exuded was extremely terrifying. Moreover, this was because he was suppressing his power. Otherwise, he should have been able to reach the Sun-Moon tier. If that were the case, his battle prowess would have undergone a qualitative leap. Why was it said that even the power of 9 stars couldn't contend against a Sun-Moon tier elite, and that one had to have 10 stars? It was because advancing 1 star would cause an earth-shattering change in one's power. Without reaching 10 stars, one could only be considered pseudo-Sun-Moon tier. "You've done very well," the elder said, his expression slightly arrogant. "Who are you guys? You look like you know each other very well, and your tone is clearly that of a senior. Aren't you a bit too shameless?" "Young master will be very satisfied," the elder continued. "Now, you can give me 3 drops of 1000-source true fluid?" So they were from the Gao faction. Ling Han finally understood. No wonder they felt so good about themselves. So it turned out that they were Gao Huang's subordinates. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "What are your brains made of? Why should I give you the divine fluid?" The elder humphed and said, "Han Lin, don't think that you're invincible here. If I truly unleash my might, your meager power won't be enough." Gao Huang had only casually asked Ling Han to give him 3 drops of 1000-source true fluid. Even if Ling Han gave him 1 drop of divine fluid, it would be enough to make him extremely satisfied. However, who would have thought that Ling Han would actually be so freakish? He had obtained as many as 4 drops of divine fluid. This was something that even the elder couldn't believe. His name was Shi Ming, and he could be considered a senior of the Gao faction. He had also entered the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm several times, but he had never obtained a single drop of 1000-source true fluid. If he brought back 3 drops of divine fluid this time, he would naturally have made a great contribution, and his life would be considered over. However, he still had descendants, and these descendants would probably receive the care of the Gao faction. They would have incredibly bright futures. For the sake of his descendants, he had to force Ling Han to submit. Ling Han smiled faintly and asked, "Are you threatening me?" "It's not a threat, it's the truth." Shi Ming humphed coldly and said, "If I unleash my might, my battle prowess will advance to the Sun-Moon tier. However, if I use the power of the Sun-Moon tier here, it's possible that I'll be killed." "Oh, so you mean that you're not afraid of death?" Ling Han asked. Shi Ming laughed loudly and said, "Who wouldn't be afraid of death? It's just that I have the resolve to die, but do you?" He had already placed all his hopes on his descendants. Thus, he would not hesitate to die to pave the way for his descendants. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh and said, "I find that you're quite pitiful. You've worked hard for others all your life, and never once have you lived for yourself. Don't talk about this with me." Shi Ming pointed at Ling Han and said, "Immediately hand over 3 drops of divine fluid, and I'll allow you to keep 1. You're still young and have plenty of opportunities to enter this place, or even other historical sites. There's no need for you to give up your life here." Ling Han shook his head and said with a smile, "Now even bandits have become so considerate. Unfortunately, no matter what you say, it can't change your nature as a bandit. Since you're so stubborn." Shi Ming took a deep breath and revealed an expression of determination. He was going to use the true power of the Sun-Moon tier to suppress Ling Han, even if he would be targeted by the restrictions. He had the resolve to do so. "I'll send you on your way." He moved. Hong, the power that belonged to the Sun-Moon tier, finally burst forth. Multiple divine patterns intertwined, and instantly broke through the hundreds. This was a qualitative change. Even those at the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier could only possess 99 divine patterns, and only those at the Sun-Moon tier could master more than 100 divine patterns. The difference was that there was a qualitative difference between the divine patterns of the Sun-Moon tier and ordinary Mountain River tier, but the 99 divine patterns of the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier were of the same quality as those of the Sun-Moon tier. They were more complex, and they were more powerful. This was the materialization of the regulations of heaven and earth. Different cultivation levels meant different qualities. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.